No one said otherwise, so. We do. We have an issue with the legality. We have an issue with the legal hold is moving upstairs. Because the elevator is not working, and if it's not a handicap accessible space, we cannot legally hold a meeting. Take it from somebody with uncommissioned disability. I'm not comfortable having a meeting unless it's handicap accessible, unless nobody may not show up, definitely can understand without activating it. That's a serious problem, because I can tell you that nothing we did at this meeting is very well. I remember when the HTC was over there, and everybody was out here. We never had it. Hey. Hey. All right, good evening, everybody. It is 5:02. This is the meeting of the Nantucket Conservation Commission. My name is Seth Engelberg. I'm the chair of the commission. And we'll start by establishing our roll call for this meeting. So let's see who's here today. If you are here, please respond in the affirmative. Nothing of the other. Great. Here. Bill Plandowski here. Linda Williams here. Thank you. And that means we have a quorum, and we will, before we move to the first item on the agenda, we'll discuss today's continuances. Under notice of intent, we have Nantucket Island Land Bank at 45 American Avenue, SC 48 3769. Continued until August 1st. And yes, and also continued is Nantucket Island Land Bank, Matachan Valley Road and Surfside, SC 48 3771, continued until August 1st. There's no other continuances that I know of. If anyone needs to continue when the time comes, let me know. And with that being said, we will start our meeting under public meeting with public comment. If you have items to discuss that are not on the agenda, now is a chance. We will be using the select board established 3-minute rule for public comment, and we will not be responding to public comment at this meeting. It's simply informative. So if you have any public comments either in the room or on Zoom, we'll take them now. Can somebody bring Burton Balcond over?
Thank you, Chairman Engelberg. I wanted to first say to remind the commissioners and anyone speaking tonight that the microphones in the room aren't great and the acoustics aren't very great. So any background talk really muffles anyone's talking who's speaking at the time. And also, like at the end of your opening statement, Chairman, yours became a lot clearer. I don't know if you moved your mic or there's adjustment, but if you speak close to the mic, it will help us out here in Zoom land to understand. The other thing I wanted to bring up was I had a question. If you commission has been contacted regarding the Vineyard Wind incident, and if you were contacted, if you could tell us what your role has been in this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Spruce. As of now, we are obviously aware of the Vineyard Wind incident, as is everybody on Nantucket. The Nantucket Conservation Commission has not had an active role, as other members of state, local, and federal government are taking care of it. But should there be a time when we need to be involved within our jurisdiction and purview, we will be. Any other public comments? Okay, So that will move us on in the agenda to public hearing. We'll begin the public hearing under notices of intent with Sconset Bluff Preservation Trust, 41 through 119 Baxter Road, SC 48, 37, 36, and who will be starting for us today? Dwight Dunk, you have the floor. Okay.
Okay,
Hold on 1 second. Yes, Linda, we'll get you invited through the panelist webinar. Okay, Dr. Dunk, while we figure out the technical issues, feel free to start your piece.
So I want to, Mr. Chairman, Chip Nyland here. I thought, so I can open up. We've essentially completed our presentation. If you recall, at the last meeting, we spoke about the beta peer review and addressed the peer review, and it was up to the commission in terms of how you were going to proceed. You were waiting on the legal opinion with respect to a couple of issues that were in front of the commission, and how we're going to proceed. So we don't have a presentation scheduled this evening. We're here to answer any questions and to see how the commission is going forward. We did receive copies of a couple of letters in opposition, which we responded to and put into the record. So we can answer any questions that we have, but we think the commission has sufficient information in front of it to begin its deliberations. We would prefer not to close the hearing until we get through the deliberations, in the event that we can answer questions as the commission's going through its deliberations.
Thank you, Chip. Does anyone else from the applicant's team wish to speak, or should we move on? Okay, does the staff have anything to say about this?
so Jeff Carlson, Natural Resources Director. Obviously, we distributed today a couple of pieces of information that we were kind of holding open from the last meeting. Obviously, we've been waiting for our independent counsel, but town council also submitted responses to those 4 questions that were there. That were kind of congruent with opinions that staff had given months and months and months ago. For review, we'll get those up and posted if you guys wish. And then at the last meeting too, we discussed kind of procedurally from our end where, in discussing positive and negative orders, you need to actually attempt to permit something to deny it on its merits. So we put together a really rough draft order, just to kind of spur discussion along. I know it was pretty long, and I apologize for sending it late today. To spur discussion, and also in hopes, if going through it as part of discussion with the board, it may flush out any other issues that have been missed or discussion topics that have been missed, in case they need to be put forward. Again, I think that, typically in the past, this application has had a few discussions about an order before closing public hearings. Just in case those issues do come up, you guys can take in the information you need to that deliberation. So that's kind of where we're at from a standpoint, if people are satisfied with that. I'll leave it to you guys.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions or comments related to what the applicant said or what staff said? Yes, Linda, go ahead.
Are we commenting on what George Pucci sent back down to us?
No, not right now. Just on what has just been said. Okay, thank you. So before we discuss the legal review, I do have concerns about what was sent in today by Mr. Pucci, because the Conservation Commission never requested nor authorized town council to send us anything. We specifically voted to authorize Special Municipal Council, Beverage and Diamond, to send us a report, and that report is underway. And although I find the information from Mr. Pucci illuminating, I don't think that should be entered into the record because it undermines our process and undermines the vote that both the Conservation Commission and the Select Board took to authorize a special municipal council. So if we were going to use town council in the first place, we've essentially just wasted everyone's time, resources, and money. So with respect to Mr. Pucci and the staff, I think that is not inappropriate to have within our record at this point. Comments, questions about that? Yes, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff, we've been waiting on that for a while. Is there any sense of if it's coming at all from Beverage and Diamond?
My last conversation with the folks in kind of an email exchange, I haven't heard back from them in about a week, but it's that time of the year where people are on vacation and things, but I would assume that it's forthcoming in the not overly distant future. I know we've been waiting for it. We had some issues with engagement language as far as where things were getting reported to, how the interaction was going to work. Obviously, we had some disparity in what the cost was going to be from the initial budget allocation for it. I think those things have been resolved. They seemingly have been, but I don't have a firm date of delivery on that. I can't say I know for sure when that is.
Yes, Tim.
So Seth, just to clarify, are you concerned that if we take this legal advice, that we're possibly jeopardizing our process because it's not in some way legitimate, or I'm just not sure?
I would say based on the factual evidence that's happened, we are jeopardizing the process. The Conservation Commission took a specific vote to authorize a special municipal council to answer these questions for us. We never took a vote to authorize town council to answer these questions for us. So if people think that town council should have been the body to answer these questions for us, at the time, we should have taken a vote to authorize that attorney to answer these questions for us. But since we already have a process in place, we are by definition violating the terms of our process. And this isn't a process we just did. The Select Board also voted to authorize special municipal council. Actually, they voted to initially authorize the $10,000 authorization, and then again at the expanded price. So with respect to Mr. Pucci's letter, I think it's a little bit unfair and a little bit disrespectful to our attorney we've chosen, Beverage and Diamond, to subvert their process. Whether or not you agree with what Mr. Pucci has to say, or you wanted town council to be the attorney represented in the first place, those are different questions. The fact is that this commission voted to do one thing, and now without anyone's vote, anyone's authorization, something else happens. If we wanted town council, I mean, I guess we could still vote to retract the contract to Beverage and Diamond and vote for town council to be our attorney. But that seems like a huge betrayal of the process. So I find this a very, very concerning here. Thank you. Yes, Linda.
I never thought we needed an independent council, having written that section of the charter. That's 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And when boards themselves are allowed to have separate council. It was mostly at the time directed toward, let's say we denied an application from the town. Any board denying an application of the town. And you put us in an adversarial position with the powers of the down state, et cetera. We were allowed to have our own council. I always thought having council for this was not necessary, because the questions that were asked and the PG answered, we've had, I believe, those questions for some time now. Got waylaid because we voted, driven by a couple of other members, to have independent council. I don't think we needed independent council because it wasn't on the merits it was on procedural issues. And he answered those procedural issues. So I was always uncomfortable with getting independent counsel for this particular reason, when it wasn't on the merit, because we had those 4 questions, and that was that, and they're all procedural. Nothing even that. So I would not be opposed to having the vote to rescind the contract and go with the answer from Fuji so we can keep going. That's my view. I just don't think we need anybody else. I think Fuji answered exactly what I already knew he was going to do. I already knew what the answers were going to be. Having dealt with it on other boards that are not. So I don't have a problem. It would have to be procedurally, you'd have to take a vote. You would send the contract and go with Fuji's recommendation and get this thing out of the road here. Because we've been sort of settling in place for at least a month, so we need a big part of it. We got the activity, we've been through that a couple of times. So I wouldn't be averse to making a motion to send that vote and go with Fuji's opinion. And that's pretty much all I gotta say.
Yes, Joe.
Yeah, I think we should accept the Pucci document for what it's worth. Not that we're gonna do anything with it, but I don't agree with canceling the outside attorneys. There was a lot of work done by Jeff to get the money, to get this thing launched. And we ought to at least wait for that. I think the select board would say, what are these people, crazy? Just wait for it.
Anyone else? I'll get back to you in this 1 second. Any other thoughts? Yes, Linda.
The reason why it's crazy and why they think we're crazy is because it's $25,000 for outside counsel to tell us what we already know. And it's going to back up what Pucci just said. And wasting $25,000 is something. And I understand that we need to keep going with the process, but there is another way to go with the process, is to vote to rescind that contract and not waste the $25,000. To have somebody say exactly what Pucci just said to us. That's what I'm having issues with.
Hold on. So with respect, you're speaking in theoreticals because we don't know what they'll say. And we can't predict the future. I do think that, we can't have both attorneys giving us opinions and then choosing which one to pick. We either have to have a representative who's representing us and stick with it, or have the other one. We can't have both at the same time. Yes, Joe.
I agree. I would stick with the outside one. And my only comment on Pucci is just so it's in the record. Pucci sent it in. We're not doing anything with it. We're going to deal with the outside one. And besides that, I could picture Jeff going back to them and saying, we're canceling your agreement. They'll say, well, we ran up $20,000 already.
And they haven't done anything.
Anyone else? So with respect, I also don't think we should rescind the contract for all the reasons that have been proposed. I will say too, just for the background here, the decision to go with special municipal council, even if it didn't meet necessarily the specific language that's in the charter, was given because town council represents the town. The town is the applicant on this notice of intent. So there's a potential, or at least a perceived potential, for conflict of interest. Whether that ends up being an actuality or not, at the time, people felt that it was not a reasonable way to move forward. So that being said, I mean, this is a free country and a free commission. If somebody wants to cancel that contract, we would need a motion to rescind the contract. That would need to be voted in the affirmative. And then we would need a second motion to authorize town council to give us a legal opinion. And that would need to be voted in the affirmative. I don't support that, but anyone else is willing to. Yes, Mike, go ahead.
So just procedurally, I'm just trying to figure out, and we can't wait indefinitely, and we've been waiting for quite some time. I mean, I understand Mr. Pucci's comments or answers are procedural in nature, but just playing devil's advocate a little bit, like what's our obligation at this point going forward to get wrapped up from the commission standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, the applicant here has already indicated they want this process to stay open until some of these questions can be answered. And it's not the role of the commission to delay permitting processes unnecessarily. That being said, it sounds like Beverage and Diamond is aware that they need to do this work and to get us the report. And also the second part of this, which isn't on the legal review, but we received a very rough draft of a order of conditions today. And there's a lot of things in there that are going to need to be fleshed out for quite some time. It's going to take multiple meetings to deal with some of these more significant conditions here. So, I mean, if Beverage and Diamond says they can't get us a report till 2027, that's different. But if they're going to get it to us, in the coming months or before the end of the year, I don't see why we're even having this conversation. Yes, Linda.
That's unreasonable. Because if we want this work, if it does go forward, if we want this work to take place this fall, we can't be waiting around for them to give us answers to 4 procedural questions, which are pretty obvious, until the end of the year. That's not reasonable, because they're not going to be putting that stuff down there in the middle of the winter when everything's happening, so it's blocked. So that's unreasonable. Was to you, Mr. Chairman, to check, was there a time limit once this contract is signed, which I believe is not signed yet? Once it's signed, is there a length of time we need an answer? These are very simple procedural questions. I've dealt with every one of these on other things.
Oh, sorry about that. Charles is going to yell at me because that was going to be in the red. I would say, I mean, the engagement letter that's been kind of going back and forth quite a bit doesn't necessarily say you have, 7 days to finish or 10 days to finish, but I think we can implore everyone to get that resolved as quickly and get something issued as quickly as possible. Again, I don't believe that it's something that's going to take, hours and hours of research and case law review to go through it. I mean, I think it's fairly straightforward questions. I mean, I think given what the applicant already said earlier, that they want to keep it open, I think our time may be better spent potentially talking about the order and then saying, I'm happy to reach out to Beverage and Diamond and say, we really need this prior to our next meeting in 2 weeks, and see what they come back with and see what they say. It would back in the contract has been approved. There was some issues with some of the language in the engagement letter, but I believe those have been resolved. We're just waiting for the town manager to physically be able to be at work to square that away. But my talk with Beverage and Diamond was that they were happy to begin doing that work.
Okay, thank you. We'll deal with that. Thank you. Yes, Joe, go ahead.
Are you saying that the letter of intent has not been signed? If that's the case, cancel it then.
That's what I was saying.
So the contract has been approved by the select board for the amount.
But not signed.
They've been given a notice to proceed from the town in exchanging some language back and forth. There were some revisions that have been made and worked through. So I believe they have begun and are working on the review. I can't confirm that it's physically signed because I know that the town manager has not physically been into the office.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Procedurally, it's the same thing. It's been approved and they have the authorization to proceed, so it doesn't matter at this point. Does anybody have additional questions or comments, or would like to make any motions related to the legal review from the commission before we hear what Mr. Nyland wants to say? Yes, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So given what we just discussed, I'm willing to wait it out for one more meeting. If we do find that it's not coming forth in a reasonable time, then hopefully we can move away from that and go to Mr. Pucci's recommendations for discussion.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Nyland, what would you like to say?
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, our concern is this can't be linear. We can't wait for Beverage and Diamond before we are discussing the conditions. So I agree with your position, Mr. Chairman, that we should be talking about what those conditions are. And if Beverage and Diamond comes in at some point, I mean, we obviously need an order of conditions. We cannot wait until the end of the year. Ms. Williams is absolutely correct. We have to start working on that if we're going to protect this area. So we just don't want to have continued meetings where we're just waiting for things to be delivered. We understand, we haven't seen either the Pucci letter or the draft order, but we would hope that you could start discussing that as early as this evening in terms of Mr. Carlson can present to you what it is that he's drafted so that we can get moving on that. And the only reason we asked that it remain open is so that we can answer questions for the commission. It's not our intention that we want to see this dragged on.
Thank you, Mr. Nyland. We are going to be discussing at this meeting substantive hearing regarding the application and the conditions, so no need to be concerned there. I would say though, at this point, because the Pucci letter has not been authorized by this commission, that it should not be entered into the record until there's a vote, or if there is a vote of this commission to accept that as a record. So at this point, independent of whatever emails were sent to commissioners, I implore staff not to post that publicly and not to put it on the record because it has not been accepted as a legal review. Okay. Yes, Mr. Turcott. Yes. I think it's there, yeah.
Thank you, Chair Engelberg. I'm Turcott, members of the Running Water Council. A couple of comments regarding this tonight. First of all, the last two meetings have been there have been late things submitted that haven't been made available to the public, and there have been changes in scheduling, continuances, what have you. Things happen, but you really need to make sure that the public can follow along with whatever materials we're talking about here, because this has been a long process. It's a complicated application, and it's impossible for any of us in the general public to really understand this conversation about something that came from town council if it has never been posted in the packet. This has been going on for months and months. The request for independent counsel was 6 months ago. Is it back in January? So maybe beyond 6 months now. It's astounding that there isn't any sort of result in hand from this group. You absolutely need to have independent counsel because the regulatory body and the applicant are the same. So the fox is guarding the hen house if you use town council. Pucci is excellent. He's an incredible wetlands attorney. He likes to say he's 3-0. He's undefeated in court with wetland issues. I've heard him say it, but in this particular case, he's not your attorney and he cannot be your attorney. It's a conflict of interest, and this is something that has been litigated in the past. It's a controversial area. And right now, there's a removal order for the G2s. There are questions out there that are specific to this project that aren't specific to your average notice of intent. You absolutely need some sort of independent counsel. And if Beverage and Diamond's going to drag their feet for attorney, which again is astounding, they said 10,000 wasn't enough. They asked for 25, they got it, and they still haven't produced anything in over half a year. maybe it's time to put an RFP out and find yourself independent counsel that will be there for you in case any of these questions come up and lawsuits follow, because the neighbors have already sued you in the past. This is not just your average notice of intent. This is a huge project. The first meeting we talked about this, I said this was the biggest project that most of you commissioners are ever going to sit on, and the most complicated one. And there's stacks and stacks of paperwork. There's a lot of history, and you absolutely need the proper professional guidance for the same reason you needed an independent expert review of the project itself from Beta. Same reason, because if you asked the town and use someone the town had, they're an applicant. It could be biased. It could be a conflict of interest. So those two main points, just that we really need to follow the submittal deadlines so that the public can follow along here, because I personally can't, and I'm here for every single meeting. I have no idea what's going on right now. And the second thing is that you absolutely, in this particular case, need independent counsel. So thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you. And before we get to you, Linda, I would say nothing about any of the comments here so far are some type of character assassination of Mr. Pucci. Mr. Pucci is an excellent attorney. I've dealt with him in the past, personally at the Conservation Commission, and he's represented us well. This is purely a procedural issue in that the commission never authorized that counsel. And I would implore staff to act quickly and do whatever it takes to make sure that the process moves forward. And in no way trying to be dismissive of our staff here today either, but just like RJ was shocked to hear of these news, I was also shocked to hear of that news of a attorney review in my email this afternoon that we never authorized. That's not how the process is supposed to go. This isn't how regulatory boards work. We need to authorize things with votes, and if they aren't voted on, then they shouldn't be happening. So thank you. Yes, Linda.
I don't want to denigrate our outside counsel either. It took a while to get the contract done. It took a while to get the money. The money was done in two separate allocations. So that in itself, with the select board scheduling, takes time. So if they're not dragging their feet, it's just that there were some procedural issues with the contract and with the amount of money. If we're going to say that Pucci's representing the town, and we're going to say that we have our own counsel, then what Pucci put in is on behalf of the town and SBPF. So that can go in the record as representing the town and SBPF. So I wouldn't dismiss it out of hand because it came this way. But if we're going to say that we have independent counsel for procedural issues, RJ, not the merits, and I understand the last gruel round, we had one on the merits. This is strictly on procedural issues. So if there are other issues that require separate counsel, that's going to have to be another allocation. We're going to have another contract. So this is limited to the 4 procedural questions, which have been out there for quite a while. I mean, you're right, we voted on those months ago. So I would say not to dismiss it out of hand. I would put it in as put in by counsel for the town and SBPF without saying, forget it, because therein lies the conflict. And if we're going to eliminate the conflict by having our own attorney, then the town can put that letter in as their response to the same 4 questions, which are on the public record. So there's a couple of ways of dealing with it.
They could do that if they authorize that, but
Them.
not us. I mean,
Yeah.
it would have to be the town's representative, Mr. Murphy's here today, or SPPS representative. I know SPPF has their own counsel, so, we can't accept that document. We can't compel the applicants to accept the document. If they want to speak with town council and have them do something and it's clearly labeled that it's on their behalf, they can do that. But the way that it was given was on behalf of the commission. So we cannot accept that document on behalf of the commission. I think we've talked long enough about the legal review and we have a path forward. So I think what we need to do to move this process forward in a meaningful, reasonable way is to start to discuss the orders of condition, but not go straight to the document. So I think that I appreciate Jeff and Will and whoever else worked on it, getting us the orders today, or the draft order. But I think there's some like large ticket items that need to have a discussion on their merits before we even get to a condition. Like, so for instance, if you read what the orders of conditions have to say, there's a finding here that says, you know, this commission finds that this project, let me find the exact one. 1 second.
I gotta pull this up.
You know, there's a finding here, number 13,
Hold
additional findings. It says the commission finds that these dwellings and infrastructure are in danger. Well, we've never had any substantive discussion at this commission as to whether we found that or not. And we also have never documented what imminent danger means in the context of this application. The applicant has given us at this point 3 different definitions and hasn't really chosen which one even they want to accept. And the commission has to have their own discussion about what imminent danger means. And if we do find that the dwellings and infrastructure are in danger based on the description of imminent danger that we describe. You know, there's also the whole idea about the walkable beach. We haven't defined what walkable beach means. There's some big ticket items that I think we need to define. So I think the purpose of today should be to start to create a list of these items and to start to schedule meetings where we review these items in depth. With that being said, if any commissioners have objections or comments or questions related to that, now would be the time.
I'm just trying to find when you sent it, because I don't have it.
Yes, Mr. Mizzarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, procedurally, I would think we could start going through it and singling out what those are. And I don't know if that means just going through the additional findings 1 through 28 or whatever we are here. I'm scanning through them and just starting to flag some of them.
I got it.
That could work. Any other ideas? Okay. And then just quickly, before we get to that, I have one comment that's related to kind of a broad scale look of this application. So if you read all of the information in the notice of intent and all the supplemental information that's been given to us over many, many hearings, the application is very well defined for phase 1. Very well defined. We have specific sand sources, we have everything. And in phase 2, it gets a lot less defined. You know, even NHESP in my assessment of their letter looked at phase 2 and says they don't have enough information to really make a decision based on phase 2. So I think we need, if we're going to permit this thing all in one, we need much more information on phase 2 before we move forward. Or I think we should focus on the permitting process for phase 1 and then have requirements that either phase 2 come in under a separate notice of intent process or an amended order of conditions process, because we simply don't have the appropriate information for phase 2. That's a personal opinion. Maybe everyone doesn't agree, but I can describe more of why I believe that if people wish. Yes, Joe.
I completely agree with that approach. We ought to do phase 1 and get that nailed down. Phase 2 is too far into the future. There are going to be a lot of changes that take place. And we'll just have to act on phase 2 at a later time after we get some history with phase 1.
I see you. Hold on 1 second. We're just going to stick with the commissioners for 1 second. Yes, Linda.
I don't agree in bifurcating these. There's too much effort, too much energy, too much cost, too much everything. If we give them an opportunity, because obviously we're not closing the public hearing today, we give them an opportunity to answer more of what you think they need in phase 2. But I think bifurcating this thing is a nightmare. And I don't think we should do that. It's got to be a comprehensive program They got to know that they can rely on the fact that they've got approval for phase two with the appropriate information and conditions. But tearing these two phases apart, I think is a bad idea. Just from procedural and for reliance of the applicants in the town and our own headaches.
The staff might not have this easily accessible, but if you do,
They
there is
kill us.
there is a graphic that shows the Sconset Shore by reach and by phase. If we don't have that available, we can reference it at a later time, but just for, it's in the NOI, but just for reference, phase one comprises much of the GO2 project.
Right.
Most of the GO2 project is in phase one. Phase two ultimately, eventually may contain some GO2s based on changes to the project area. But for people's reference, most of the GO2 proposed is in phase one. Yes, go ahead. Come up to the podium and introduce yourself for the record.
Oh, sorry. Good evening, Meredith Moldenhauer, a homeowner and representative for SVPF. I know you guys have had many hearings on this. I respectfully disagree with the chair. Phase two has been fully fleshed out. It is the exact same in regards to detail and information as phase one. The only difference is the sand source. And we have reviewed that. Beta even came in. There was a question, I think, by the chair to Beta 3 meetings ago, asking about this. And Beta agreed that the phasing in this project would be sufficient and that the detail was there. We also have to remember that this is a privately funded project, and that the phase two homeowners have been the individuals and a large number of the individuals that are obviously supporting this project. So it's critical that we get this approved as one single project. We've been going through this as one project because we saw what did not work with the initial pilot project, and we don't want to see that. We've explained those aspects here in many meetings. I'm happy to go through those again or answer questions from any of the commissioners. But it is critical that this gets approved in all one phase, and to try to bifurcate them would be a failure for the project, I think, overall. But I can answer any questions. I'm happy. I can go back down and sit down or answer questions that the commission may have. And also we have our team, Dwight Dunk and Chip Nyland with us as well.
Thank you. If we have questions, we'll bring you back up. And so with respect to Ms. Moldenhauer, there are 3 differences. The sand source, which she identified, which has not been identified. And I understand that the applicants don't want to go through the whole process of identifying the sand source right now because it's expensive to find offshore sand source for a project that may not ever exist. I get that. But permitting of a phase one would give you enough reason to do that because it's clear that the project is likely to proceed in the future. So I don't think there's really an issue there. The other thing is the NHESP review, which I mentioned before. And the third is phase two is based on multiple trigger steps, right? So there's the dune and then the Kawar terraces, and then ultimately in some areas, a geotube. So it's a much longer process with many more variables. And we can't necessarily predict what's going to happen at what year or what target. So I just don't think we should be making decisions so far out in the future right now. I think what's in phase one is clearly easy to identify, and in phase two, not so much. Thank you for getting that.
Oh, you just popped
Mr.
up
Chair.
something.
Yes,
Chairman,
Mike, go ahead.
While we're pulling that up, I'm going to tend to agree with Linda that we don't want to break this into too many pieces. And one of my reasons is just so that people who are involved in the project and ultimately, paying for it have an idea of what we're doing with phase two. That doesn't mean that we're not going to that we're going to skip any of the steps involved in phase two, but I'm not in favor of breaking it up into multiple phases for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Tim, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, what are the other what are the other things you feel need to be clarified about phase two?
I just said them, but the sand source, the expanded review from ESP, and this one can't be clarified, but given the amount of steps and different alternatives that are going to happen, we just have less understanding of the timing and what might take place when the project is on the ground.
But with the sand source, if they don't find it a suitable sand source, they can't move forward with phase two. So why is that really a problem? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we necessarily have to. I mean, I think I did say this, but I'm flexible. I don't necessarily think we have to split it into two notices of intent, but we need to make sure that prior to phase two happening, we have much more concrete information. And if we can do this with conditions in this permit, fine. If we can do this with conditions saying that, phase two has to receive an amended order before going forward, fine. But I just want to make people aware that there's a lot less clarity on phase two than on phase one. Yes, Linda, before we go to you, we're going to go to Mr. Murphy. Super weird. And we're on
Very kindly, Chair. Murphy Natural Resources Department and working on this project with SBPF on behalf of the town. Please remember that also through the operation and maintenance plan and also through the NOI itself, there are many places where reports are required. You're going to have to see the reports, and that will show you through the reporting as the projects continue and as they look at the phase two area, as the site conditions will dictate through time, that will be the demonstrator of why phase two is needed and how they are making those determinations. And those reports will have to come to the Commission for review, where you will then get a chance to comment to see that they are making those determinations correctly. If it's bifurcated and turned into two things, it would actually potentially raise a question. Why would SBPF look at the phase two area? That would potentially knock it out of the phase two area if they're not going to study it, if they're only going to do the first part. So I would again urge for both.
Thank you. And I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but it seems like the applicants here have said different things over time. In your comments right now, you're saying that the reports and the decision to move forward is going to come to the Commission, but in your application, you're asking for it to go to staff for review to the next phase. So if we can all agree and we can all get behind the fact that they have to come to the Commission for these things, it solves my problem. But if the applicants are gung-ho about it being a staff review, then it doesn't solve my problem. So thank you. Yes, Ms. Williams.
I agree with you on coming to the Commission. And I agree that the reports are going to substantiate or not the progress and what they foresee in phase two. So that's another reason why I don't want to do it, but I think you're correct. And that the reports need to come and be reviewed by the Commission itself. And a status report before they even enter into phase two, written into the conditions that we establish now in order to keep it together. So I think there's a way to craft the decision, the approval, that would address all of those concerns and still keep us involved as they progress into phase two, because those reports are going to have to be submitted. And I'm more comfortable with them coming to the Commission than going through the staff. So I think that'll alleviate some of it, because if there's something in there that we're not happy with, the staff is going to inform us of that, and then we make that decision.
Thank you. Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think we tried to cover it in one of the conditions in here that actually we are recommending requiring a vote of the Commission to move from phase one to phase two. And I think from the discussion right now, I think it's pretty clear that instead of that being a simple condition, that may be a multifaceted condition to include that. But I 1,000,000% agree that is not a staff approval item to authorize a whole phase of a project.
Thank you. And I think it requires more than a vote as well. It requires the submission of many more documents, and in some cases, reviews that are outside of our purview. So, you know, if those need to all be delivered before the phases advance, we can't just vote to advance it. We need to have the appropriate data to move forward. Yes, Mr. Nyland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to let you know that our concern is not with going in front of the commission. It's that it's not a new vote that approves the project all over again. What we've proposed in response to Beta's peer review is that we would come back to you and essentially certify that we've met the conditions the commission establishes with this order of what's necessary in order to go to phase 2, which would be the monitoring that Vince Murphy has spoken about, the sand source, and that we have identified that the geotubes are the next resort with respect to the failure of the quad terraces. So as long as we have those conditions and we certify that to the commission that we've met the requirements to go from phase 1 to phase 2, then would be appropriate then for the commission to look at that and say, yes, they've certified that and can go forward. But we're not looking for it to be a de novo, a brand new review of whether or not we should be looking at managed retreat or something else. It's directly to go to the next phase of the geotubes.
Dr. Dunk, would you like to elaborate?
Yes, just one other point about going from phase 1 to phase 2, similar to us recommending and would accept a condition that, prior to construction of phase 2, updated survey and design plans be submitted, because this is a dynamic shoreline such that as you go through design and permitting, there may be changes. So that's a pragmatic, common sense condition, and having the same thing for phase 2 of an updated survey and design drawings for the phase 2 would, I think, Mr. Chair, provide the additional information to quantify the phase 2 project at the time that goes to, would go to construction and go from phase 1 to phase 2.
Thank you. And with respect to Mr. Nyland, I personally feel like that the role of the commission isn't to just certify the conditions as you've mentioned. The role of the commission is to take all the information it has at the time, including any new information that may be germane to the project based on what actually happens on the ground as a result of erosion or of the coastal engineering structures existing, and then make their decision based on that. Otherwise, if we're just certifying the process, there's no sense for us to do it at all. We would just have staff do it. So I don't think we're asking you to come and have a completely new hearing, but there is going to need to be a deliberation discussion about whether the conditions that the applicant is describing meet the realities that the commission believes is happening on site, and if there is a need to move forward. Thank you. Commissioners? Okay. At this point, before we go through the findings, do any other commissioners have large ticket items like the one I just mentioned that they think is necessary to set the guidelines for this process? Yes, Linda.
I think the only thing I'd like to do, since we got it so late, I mean, I've just done a cursory review, is to put that off for discussion in detail to the next meeting so we can all sit down and take a look at the 7 pages that are in here right now.
Okay.
I think it might be premature to start nitpicking right now when we haven't really read it.
Thank you. So for the applicants, we did receive this draft order this afternoon. I'm not even sure all commissioners have read it. So would you be willing to give us until the next meeting to review and take our own time thinking about this, and then we can start the discussion of the conditions at that meeting? Yes, Joe, go ahead.
Is it possible to meet a week from now rather than 2 weeks from now, so this thing doesn't get dragged out, and just force it until we get it done every week?
It may be possible if we can schedule the meeting like by tomorrow, but it would depend on availability and, you know, all the other considerations.
I think the 2 weeks is reasonable. And if we get into the weeds in 2 weeks, I think we need to have a meeting right after that.
Yes. Jeff, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, if people want time to review it, I'm also not adverse if people have comments or thoughts or things that they see that are especially big ticket items or conversation points. They can certainly email Will or I, and we can add it as a discussion point and kind of create a red line version of this with discussion topics for people. And then obviously we'll post it up for people to get. And I do apologize for getting to you late today, but the last 2 weeks have been dominated by other coastal issues and not this one.
It's not your fault.
It's been a little breezy in the office, so.
Yes. Tim, go ahead.
I think a week is fine for me. I read the thing this afternoon and I know it's very complicated, but I think the sooner we can get back to it, we should.
I would be fine with a week, provided we could meet the criteria to do that. I mean, it's coming into the weekend. It's going to be interesting reading and homework.
Yeah, I mean, the staff is gonna have to, well, first of all, we'll have to check our dates, and then the staff is gonna have to look at the dates. And next Thursday evening, I'm not available, so this is gonna have to be a different day if it's gonna be next week, so. I would just respectfully request that we take the 2 weeks, and then if we need to have follow-up meetings on a more regular basis after that, we'll do it, but for now, I think we just go to our next regular meeting.
And we should be able to get town council, or our council to respond.
I
And that's a.
I think that's the
hopefully-
priority for sure.
Hopefully.
Mr. Nyland, would you like to comment?
Well, yes, you asked me whether or not we would be acceptable. Well, obviously, if we could meet next week, that would be preferable. If you can't make it, that's obviously a non-starter. So, the applicant's looking for this to proceed. We appreciate the commission appears to be on that same road. So, we would approve or assent to a continuation to the next meeting. We might suggest that a couple of things. First, that you could share that draft with us to the extent that that's appropriate, that the commission thinks that that's appropriate. And then second, maybe you'd be looking at what that next meeting would be as well, so that we wouldn't bump into this in 2 weeks and realize that we're going to be off another 2 weeks or otherwise.
Thank you. So, yes, Jeff, go ahead.
Sorry, don't mean to interrupt. I mean, I think if it's amenable from the discussion here, I mean, we're obviously happy to post this up, and I think we have some requirement too now that we've been using it as part of the meeting. So we'll get it up, and then obviously anyone from the public can certainly send in thoughts or comments too, for consideration. But I also think if we're going to take the initial 2 weeks, I think we're also happy to look at kind of that weekly date, starting from the meeting in 2 weeks. And we can at least book a location specific and try to hold it to our regular time as much as possible. And if we need to be flexible from there, but we can take care of all of the logistics to do that and have all of that ready for people to review as well.
Thank you. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to continue the hearing, but not quite yet. The process, just so everyone understands, is we're going to meet next at our August 1st meeting. And then offline, the staff is going to try to confirm availability with representatives and commissioners for future dates in August and September so that we can keep on track. And at the August 1st meeting, we're going to start to go through findings and think about these big ticket items that need more clarification. And then we're going to start to discuss them. And in some cases, if we need additional resources, we'll be requesting those resources to get opinions on that. Yes, Dr. Dunk.
Yeah, just a clarification. You said August 1st. Do you mean August 8th that it's continued to, or?
August 8th. August 8th is the meeting, and I have August 1st on my calendar here, and I mistakenly continued to application to August 1st, but
I just wanted to be clear for the record in our calendars. Thank you.
It's August 8th, and when we go back out of this notice of intent, I'm gonna fix those continuances. So thank you. August 8th.
Keep in mind, that's also the ZBA day, and we had an issue with the timing the last time, so just.
Staff will figure it out for us.
Yeah.
Yes, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, just a question, and then maybe you can just, if it's more appropriate for commissioners' comments, just, it's a clarification for me, but where does our newest member fit in on SBPF? And I mean, we've been at it for a year. He's just here. How does that work?
Yeah, so I can answer that. So I'm assuming you're referring to John Schaefer.
John Schaefer.
Because this application was opened before his board service started, he is not allowed to sit on the application. We also have a vacancy, as you all know. It looks like that seat is going to be filled in late September, but won't actually be at our meeting until October. And if this application is for some reason still open by then, that person also would not be able to sit. So there will be 5 commissioners sitting on this application. Of course, if anybody is not here, that causes concern. So please do your best to be here for these meetings.
Thank you.
Before we continue, do any members of the public have questions, comments on the items specifically discussed today? Not the process, just what was discussed today. Okay, Dennis Murphy, please go ahead. Someone bring him over.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. You'll recall 2 weeks ago, we were there on island and the meeting didn't go forward. Dr. Kriebel's in an airplane. So he.
Yes, we can see you now and you can unmute and we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. So I was just hoping that when we get to August 8th, that I know you have an agenda where you are keen to get started on your orders of conditions, but he did have some substantive comments and we did try to get those out, and I would like to alert the commission that we'd like to have the opportunity to do that. In particular, the Green Hill property, which we represent, recently had a survey that showed very significant erosion, 10 to 15 feet, since the last Woods Hole group survey just 18 months ago in December of 2012. Kriebel's calculation is that's equivalent to 40,000 cubic yards of sand that's been lost. And not coincidentally, that's the amount of sand that would have been required under the original order of conditions that has not been placed. So he has some particular comments that he would like to make, both in response to the beta report and in response to this survey that was recently done adjacent to the geotubes.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. And as long as this application remains open, we have a regulatory duty and responsibility to accept public comment at our hearing. So any hearing that we have, we welcome your comments, anyone's comments.
Thank you.
And with that being said, Mr. Nyland, would you like to continue this application until August 8th?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I thought I had taken care of that earlier, but yes.
Thank you. Just for confirmation, that will continue to August 8th. And is the next SPPF 59 through 83 Baxter Road, SE 48 3759, are you also requesting to continue that?
No, I think we're going to go forward. I mean, specifically given where we are in terms of the time lapse and the fact that we really do need to address this repair, I think we would like to discuss that next. And Dr. Dunk will lead that discussion.
Why are they doing that?
Okay, that's your prerogative. So Dr. Dunk, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. I know it's been a while since this has been discussed. And you may recall that this notice of intent was submitted. This may be this is really a refresher for people on the commission, just to refresh your memories. The applicants had requested and received an emergency certification to do repair work after the storms, January and February. Part of an emergency certification involves submitting a notice of intent within 21 to 30 days. The special condition was to submit a notice of intent within 21 days after the completion of the work. So that's why this notice of intent was filed, to follow up the work that was performed during the emergency certification. We described the work that had been completed within the 30-day emergency period. Not all of that work not all of the repairs and maintenance was able to be completed within those 30 days. So this notice of intent was submitted as a requirement of the emergency certification to include completion of those repairs that could not be done within the 30-day emergency period, and to allow ongoing annual maintenance. This stretch of shoreline had in the past received orders of conditions for Coyer Terraces, and those orders had allowed for annual maintenance. The history of those had lapsed. So in discussion with staff, when we're discussing this emergency cert, it was decided that also doing the emergency cert with a follow-up notice and receiving an order would help to bring everything up to compliance on the paperwork side. And the other element of this is allowing these Coyer Terraces to remain in the annual maintenance really maintains the status quo that's been out there for the past 20 or so years of having Coyer Terraces in annual maintenance thereof. So that's just some background to refresh everyone's memory. When we were last here in April, the discussions that we had was, number one, the signatures. All the signatures of the owners have been submitted to the commission. There is a question about whether or not Coyer Terraces are coastal engineering structures. The regulations, your bylaw regulations, have two definitions. One of them does include the phrase, or others as determined by the commission. So, the commission can define what a coastal engineering structure is. If the commission determines these are coastal engineering structures, we did provide to the record that all of these homes are pre-78 homes and therefore eligible for protection. So therefore we do request an order of conditions to allow the completion of the repairs that could not be done in the 30-day emergency period and the annual maintenance thereof. As we're getting into the end of the summer, coming into the fall would be a good time to get that work done before the storm season begins. So with that, we would request that we move forward with the order of conditions for the Coyer Terraces along this stretch.
Thank you, Dr. Dunk. Do members of the commission have comments or questions? Yes, Linda?
At one point, was there an issue when you were talking about the signatures? At one point, was there a question of whether any of this was on town property and you need to get the town sign off? Wasn't that one of the first things we talked about?
It is.
Did we ever get an answer from that?
It is definitely on town property. And I believe the town signatures have been required, that were required have been received. Is
Okay,
that
'cause
correct,
was the
Dr.
one thing
Dunk?
that was missing.
The town has committed to sign the notice of intent application. As I think we all know, there's been some personal issues that have, prevented that signature from happening yet. But the email that we received today was that the town would sign the notice of intent application, and that will complete all of these signatures as the owners for the notice of intent.
So staff, so we haven't received that signature.
Correct. We have all of the private landowners' signatures.
Thank you. So we can discuss this application today at the commission's discretion, but we're unable to close the application prior to receiving the signature. That's specifically called for in our regulations.
Can I
Yes,
just
Seth, go
clarify
ahead.
something? It was my understanding that this was going to be taken up by the select board at the earliest at their 8/7 meeting for potential authorization. So we have definitely not received a sign off from the town.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for speaking and what I was not aware of. So Dr. Dunk, if you'd like us to discuss some of your other points, we can, but we're not able to close and issue a permit until we have all the appropriate information, including that signature.
I would like to try to discuss, the project, understand where the commission is on this, because I understand the administrative purpose of the signature, but in terms of the issues relative to the project, the stabilization of the coastal bank so that it can continue to provide the function of storm damage prevention, flood control, and the proposal that was in the notice of intent, so that maybe we can get these substantive issues addressed sooner than later.
Thank you. So I think there's three issues here. The first is, how does the commission view Kawar terraces as either being or not being a coastal engineering structure? If anybody, members of the commission would like to comment, please go ahead. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll go first on that one. Because the a G-type material and the sand goes through them, I don't personally view them as a coastal engineering structure. And I'll be interested to hear what other commissioners have to say.
From what I read, it's not.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I agree with them.
All right. I will just, for the record, read out what structure coastal engineering says in our regulations. It says any structure intended or constructed so as to prevent or alleviate storm damage or modify tidal action, wave action, littoral flow, or erosion. Examples of these structures may include, but are not limited to, any bulkhead, revetment, seawall, riprap, groin, jetty, artificial seaweed, geotextile fabric, plastic sheeting, multiple rows of fencing, or other as determined by the commission. That's what Dr. Dunk was referencing. And then under structure, it's a combination of materials assembled at a fixed location to give support or shelter. And I'm not going to read the rest, but my understanding of reading that language as a plain definition is that a Kawar terrace is certainly a combination of materials assembled at a fixed location that gives support. And if it meets the definition of structure, by being a combination of materials assembled at a fixed location to give support, and its purpose is to be constructed to prevent or alleviate storm damage, modify tidal action, wave action, littoral flow, or erosion, I don't understand how it could not be a coastal engineering structure. I mean, I think that, part of this discussion is a little bit related to what the regulations say. And then there's going to be another issue to this discussion about whether it's a coastal engineering structure or not. Do we think it meets the performance standards? That's a separate question. But based on the definition, I don't see how it could not be a coastal engineering structure. Thank you. Yeah, Linda, go ahead.
I think of everybody sitting at the table, you were the only one that was here when they originally got approved. They've been there for a while. When they were originally approved, was the finding made that these were coastal engineering structure?
No.
What did they say they were when they were approved?
The original approval of these goes back like 20 years.
Yeah.
I was a child when these were originally approved.
You're the only one at the table besides him that was.
But the reality is also the regulations as written at that time were different. You know, I think we were 3 regulatory updates ago at the time the original proposal went through. So I don't necessarily think it matters if at the time they were originally permitted, whether they were considered a structure or not. I think it matters do we as commissioners do just a very specific reading of the regulations, and do we believe it's a structure or not? I mean, that's what's important. If other people disagree with me, I'm one person, and we'll say it's not a coastal engineering structure and we'll move on. But I think based on how the definitions are written, it's hard to believe that they couldn't be. So thank you.
Question for you.
Yes.
It may have to go to staff as well. If they were not considered that at the time, because the regs were different, they were much more loosey-goosey back then. And we change it, they're in here to repair them. If we change the definition now from what they were originally approved under, does that create a whole nother host of issues for them?
Go ahead.
Can we give a shot at that
Yeah.
one?
Go ahead. Give
So
it a shot.
I think really the issue is, you know, when we had to come in for a new application, because we were dealing with a replacement and it had moved beyond just a normal repair. I mean, the original permit for these core terraces, you know, extended through what's now geotube area.
Right.
So it was a much larger area that was permitted. And when this was run off we had them come in because in our talks with both DEP and our internal review, it had moved to replacement, triggering the new filing and understanding that, and also understanding that the kind of emergency nature of it as well at the time. I mean, I think you're a little bit in that place where you're dealing with a replacement structure that you're having to deal with the current performance standards, because it's a replacement and not a true repair.
So Seth, you were listing multiple things. The first one, whether we make the finding that it is a coastal structure, and the second one was, does it meet the performance standards? And what was there a third?
Yeah, I mean, even if we find that it doesn't meet the performance standards, we could still apply a waiver to have this project go forward to exist because we think it's needed. You know, just not to bury the lead, I 100% believe it's a coastal engineering structure. I also think it meets the performance standards in this area. So I don't have any problem with this project going forward, but I think it's important, and maybe this annoys a lot of people and makes these hearings longer, but we should be permitting projects based on the exact definitions of the regulations so that we do it right and don't run into issues in the future. So I don't have any concern with the project moving forward. I have concerns with permitting in a way that's not regulatorily sufficient.
All right, I agree with you on that one.
Other commissioners? Okay, Dr. Dunk?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of points from the discussion. And I will admit, I did not do the permitting on these, but I do have the record of the permitting, and that was back in 07, 09 timeframe. And they were not, the commission at that time did not define them as a CES. Number two, the other definition of engineering structure within the bylaw more mirrors the definition that is in the wetland protection the state regulations, and the DEP does not typically consider these types of projects as a CES. And number three, just going along with your discussion, we had identified that should the commission define these as a CES in the notice of intent, we did document how we believe this project meets the performance standards for work on a coastal bank here. So where you're going with Mr. Chair as to the fact that the project meeting the performance standards, we concur, and we believe that this project does meet the performance standards of 1030.
Thank you.
In the relevant section of the bylaw too. Thank you.
There's no
Thank
harm, no
you.
foul.
And without getting unnecessarily complicated here, I agree with Dr. Dunk that under the Wetlands Protection Act, that Kawar terraces are not considered coastal engineering structures. I think they are only, in my opinion, considered coastal engineering structures under the language in the local regulations. So if we were going to permit this in the affirmative, I would actually see us issuing two separate permits, which isn't that common. We usually issue one permit to satisfy the local and state regulations in the same. But I would recommend we issue a state permit and then a split permit, a separate local permit that says under the state act, this is not a coastal engineering structure. Under the local act, this is a coastal engineering structure. And I know staff has dealt with that before and can do it again.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. So it sounds like we all have a pretty unanimous belief, or if not unanimous, consensus belief that under the local regulations, Kawar Terrace is going to be classified as a coastal engineering structure. So now let's move on to the discussion of the performance standards. The people believe that as proposed, does this project meet the performance standards for Coastal Bank and Coastal Beach?
Yeah.
Any questions, comments?
I agree.
Okay.
Simple.
All right. I think it sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. So I think the request would be to staff to draft two positive orders, one under the state act and one under the local act. But we are going to have to wait until we receive authorization from the select board to have those signatures move forward. And before we close this hearing, I'm going to go and take public comment as well. Yeah, we can't close the hearing
Yeah,
because
so we gotta keep going.
don't have the signature.
Technically, the application is incomplete without that.
Yeah.
Before we continue the hearing, I meant to say, do any members of the public have questions or comments? Bruce, go ahead. Please identify yourself and say your piece.
Burton Ballkind. I have a couple of questions. I'm trying to understand the emergency nature of this notice of intent since it's been sitting in a semi stable state for 8 or 9 months. And then my second question would be, and I think Jeff addressed this a little about the nature of the NOI being repair. In my understanding and my viewing of the proposed NOI for the core is there's nothing there at all. It's just a beach with a somewhat protruding bank that was protected by core, but there's absolutely nothing there. So maybe you could address those questions if you can. Thank you.
Yes, I can. And I'm going to start with the second one because it informs the first one. Part of what you're saying had been true. There was a significant loss to the pre-existing Kawar Terrace array. And that is what that's why the applicants before this notice of intent decided to submit a emergency request to repair that Kawar Terrace array. That emergency request and this notice of intent are somewhat connected, but they are separate. There was an emergency request asked for and approved, and much of the work was done. So repair and replacement of the Kawar array was done. As part of that emergency certification, the applicant is required to submit a notice of intent to get the project into compliance with a real order of conditions. And in this case, they're also trying to authorize some additional work that wasn't able to be done during the 30-day emergency period. So that's the history on the site. I know it's a bit complicated, but that's the history. Given what had happened and how degraded the Kawar array had been prior to the emergency certification, that's what makes this project not a maintenance project or not a repair project. That's what makes this a replacement or even a new application. And that's why we are viewing this project differently than projects in the past. That's why we're able to view this as a coastal engineering structure, even if we hadn't viewed projects in the past that way, because this does not meet the considerations for maintenance or repair. This is a new permit. Thank you. Deanne Atherton, please go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just in sort of two brief comments. One, as a point of information, on the record, it is our understanding that if an NOI is incomplete, a public hearing cannot be opened. And without the signature of the main property owner, this NOI is incomplete. Now, it's good news to hear that that's going to come, but it is determined by a vote of the select board. So I just think we're diverging from process here, and that needs to be noted.
Thank you.
And my second comment, Mr. Chair,
yes, go ahead.
is that the license issued by the town back in 2008 for the Quar Terrace projects expired actually in 2010. So there is presently no license from the town for the town property to be used for this purpose. And if the commission does issue a permit for the installation of the Quar terraces, that can only be done by the issue of a license from the town for the use of the property, which now requires a vote of town meeting.
Part of it's in county.
Thank you, Deanne. And some of those things are, outside of our purview, but I'm going to check one thing because I do believe we have the ability to open. I'm looking at our regulations and the bylaw right now. I do believe we have the ability to open hearings without all the appropriate information, but we don't have the ability to close hearings without the appropriate information. So I don't think there's any issue of what we're doing today. But I respect your comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other members of the public? Spruce, do you have a second question or follow-up? Yes, just 1 second. Go ahead.
No, Chairman. It's confusing. You're still using the words emergency order and to the like, but I think you explained it enough, so I have a grasp of how the process is working. Thank you.
Thank you. Meredith, come on up.
Hi, Meredith Oldenhauer again on behalf of SBPF, the applicant on this. Just to kind of maybe address, and I think the chair did a great job of kind of talking about the emergency factors, but I just want to identify that there was the emergency work that was done after the horrible storms in January and February, which did create substantial loss of Quar terraces. Not all Quar terraces were lost in that area. The work was then permitted under the emergency permit, and we did 30 days worth of work, which was, we were able to do a majority of the work, but not all of the work. Unfortunately, then there was another major storm in April, which actually then took away about 15 feet from some of the properties here, and also took away some of the, some and all of the bags in certain areas. So there are certain homes right now, which is why we were asking to go forward with this, that have no Quar terraces. There are other homes that have maybe one Quar terrace or another Quar terrace that was potentially moved or changed by obviously the wave action. But there again, this is a very active area where there's a variety of different, property owners or properties that have different things. Again, some that are protected now by nothing, others that are protected either by one, or by, two, depending upon how that April storm then impacted the work that was done under the emergency. So I hope that just kind of helps explain that there are a variety of different aspects that are still on.
Thank you. And just in further response to Ms. Atherton's comment, I just looked at the procedures in both the bylaw and in the regulations. And we are able to open hearings without all the appropriate information. We're not able to close them, and we are able to continue without the applicant's consent if they don't provide us the information that is needed. But we're certainly able to have this discussion without any issue today. Anyone else wish to comment? Okay, so, Dr. Dunk, would you like to continue until the August 8th meeting?
Yes, I would, Commissioner Engelberg.
Okay, thank you. That will continue until August 8th.
Thank you all for your time and attention on this. The owners appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you as well. I know it's complicated. And then before we move on, at the beginning of this meeting, I referenced the two Nantucket Island Land Bank applications, which are SC 48 3759 and SC S 3769 and 3771. I mentioned that they were continued until August 1st. On the agenda, they're also listed as continued to August 1st. That is incorrect. They are continued till August 8th. So with that being said, our next item on the agenda is Two Pilgrims LLC at 15 and 17 Pilgrim Road, SC 48 3788, represented by Mark Ritz.
And I have to recuse, I did all the original work on this property.
Okay, Linda is recused. Is everyone else able to sit? Because we're at the minimum quorum. Okay. Mark Ritz, take the floor, please.
Good evening, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 15 and 17 Pilgrim Road. The application before you is a request to construct a house and pervious driveway outside the 50-foot buffer. There is an off-site wetland located across Pilgrim Road from the subject property. The 50-foot buffer just barely kisses the northwest corner of the property. All of the work is going to be outside of the 50-foot buffer, landscaping, driveway, and portions of a single-family residence. The wetland is down in a very deep hole. We are well above 2-foot groundwater separation for the foundation for the structure. We don't require any waivers or any other special issues. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ritz. Are there any questions or comments from members of the commission? Are there any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none of either commission or public, staff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, we do, sir.
Mr. Ritz, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Do we have a motion to close?
So moved.
I think Joe beat you, but we'll give you the second. So Joe with the motion and Mike with the second. And let's do roll call vote since we're small here. Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Joe Plandowski. And Seth Engelberg, the chair votes aye. And yes, Linda Williams is recused. Okay, so that will bring us to the next application, which is Granick 244 Nantucket Road, SE 48 3790. And that is also represented by Mark Ritz.
Once again, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 244 Nantucket Road. The application before you is a request to upgrade an existing septic system. There is currently a conventional septic system on site. It is located entirely inside the 100-foot buffer. There's a small portion of property that is outside the 100-foot buffer, but falls within a well buffer zone for an abutting property's well, so we can't put the septic there. What we are proposing to do is to keep the existing leach trenches and to upgrade the septic processor to an IA system. We're not increasing capacity. We're just upgrading the conventional tanks, a single tank to 2 AI tanks. And we are removing the existing tank from the 25-foot buffer zone. I'm sorry, from inside the 50-foot buffer zone. We're placing the 2 new tanks just outside the 50-foot buffer zone. That's basically the extent of this application. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ritz. AI tanks sound like a scary tech overlord taking us over, but IA tanks.
IA, excuse me. I got a little tired listening to the previous hearings. So.
It's okay. I'm just making a joke. So do any members of the commission have questions or comments? Do any members of the public have questions or comments? Staff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair.
Mark, would you like to close?
Please.
Okay.
Motion to close the public
Thank
hearing.
you, Linda. Do we have a second? Tim, thank you for the second. By roll call vote, Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg, or I'll go last. Mike Mizzarelli, Tim Braid,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski, Seth Engelborg, aye.
Meeting for you to lose track.
We've
You've
talked
got
about
to keep us together.
talked about a lot today already.
Keep us
but-
together.
So that carries unanimously. And that will move us on to Somerset LLC at 5 High Brush Path, SC 483789, represented by Mark Ritz.
Once again, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 5 High Brush. This commission, or at least some members of this commission, had previously seen a similar application for this property probably about 6-9 months ago, which was withdrawn because there were some issues with an HOA. Those issues have since been resolved. The application is to construct a pool and to cover some existing decking with a pergola. No roof, just the pergola slats. On portions of the property. The pool is entirely outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. The decking is inside the 50-foot buffer zone, but we're not increasing the deck footprint. We're just putting the wood pergola over the existing decking. The deck of the pool is at a sufficient height compared to groundwater that we will be above 2-foot groundwater separation here. It's not going to be a very deep pool, and the groundwater is down low enough based on test pits done on the property during the septic upgrade. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions any commissioners may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners? All right, time for me then. So the proposed planting beds that are located next to the pergola and the deck, is that just, you mean area where plants are going to go into, or is that some type of like wooden retaining structure that would classify as a structure under our definition?
I believe that's just, planting area cut out of the turf, possibly mulched, hydrangeas, the usual kind of stuff that people put around their houses on Nantucket, or ornamental stuff. No structure, no timber retaining wall or timber elements.
Thank you, because there's obviously the possibility that when you say planting bed, it could turn into a raised bed garden or who knows what. So just under orders of condition, we should say that, that is not the purpose of that location.
Not at all.
Any questions from members of the public? Okay, I don't see any. Staff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, we do, so.
Mark, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Linda. Mike, would you like to second?
Second.
All right. By roll call, Mike Mizzarelli,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski, Linda Williams,
Aye.
and Seth Engelborg votes aye. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
And that will take us on to Gregory and Wilkinson, 55 Nobadir Ave, SE 48 37 91. Also, Mark Ritz, you have a big schedule today.
Once again, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 55 Nobadir. This is my last one, I promise, at least for today. The project in front of you, 55 Nobadir, is an existing residentially developed property. There's a house and a secondary building on a portion of it. It's being subdivided. The applicants are proposing to construct a new house and some decking. Let me just zoom in on my plan so that I am, I'm sorry,
You can share this.
they're proposing to construct a new dwelling, a small pool, and a patio. The dwelling and pool are entirely outside of the 50-foot buffer zone to the top of the non-eroding coastal bank. It's currently a stable, well-vegetated bank, not eroding at this time or showing any evidence of recent erosion. Very thoroughly vegetated all the way down to the dune and beach. There is a patio, which under current regulations is still considered a dry laid pervious patio, proposed partially inside the 50. No structures or any work inside the 25-foot buffer zone, and only landscaping in the proposed patio inside the 50. All other structures and pool outside the 50-foot buffer zone. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do any members of the commission have questions or comments? Yes, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for Mark on the proposed patio. Are they proposing bluestone? Are they proposing another material, or do we have specifics on that yet?
I believe it's a bluestone, dry laid bluestone patio.
Thank you.
Other commissioners? Yes, Linda.
Mark, did you say it was bluestone, but is it butted up against itself, or do you have space? Because we've talked about that when we were doing the regulations.
I'm not sure if it's going to be butted up or spaced, but this is still going in under current regs, and as far under current regs, dry laid patios, non-cemented patios are still considered pervious, I believe.
Okay, because I'm just also I'm looking at the aerials all the way back to 2007, and that pretty much the bank is where it was in 2007. Unusual for that area.
Yes, and under the current regulations, dry laid patios still are not considered structures.
Right.
They will be in January, but we're not in January yet. So any members of the public have questions or comments? Staff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, we do.
Mark, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second? Thank you, Tim, for the second. By roll call vote, Linda Williams.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Tim Brand.
Aye.
Joe Plandowski. And Seth Ingeborg, aye. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for all your applications. So that will move us on to someone new, Seahorse Lane LLC, 5 Grand Avenue, SE 48 3786, represented by Paul Santos. Good evening, Paul, and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors on behalf of the property owner and applicant, Seahorse Lane LLC. This is a notice of intent for work at 5 Grant Avenue. This parcel of land is approximately 18,000 square feet, located on the easterly side of Grant Avenue. For those that are not familiar, Grant Avenue is a connector road essentially to Lincoln Circle. So this sits up on the cliff, if you will. And it is a long, narrow property that fronts on Grant Avenue. The application itself is pretty straightforward. It is the placement of a generator within the 100-foot buffer zone to an isolated vegetated wetland located off the subject property. This application was before you a few years back, in which a RDA was filed to determine that there were no resource areas on the particular site, specifically coastal bank, flood zone, or any type of wetland. There is a flood zone is located to the east off locus, and it's adjacent to the isolated vegetative wetland. So the intent here is to put a generator on the backside of the existing lawn area, just past an existing hedge. It would be essentially a small retaining wall, a fenced area, and the generator would be depressed a few feet into the bank area, or the slope in this particular case. All the work would be done outside of the 50. That also includes any type of grading. I do have a DEP file number. If subject property is not subject to NHESP review. Again, this is a buffer zone only filing with no requests for waivers, and happy to answer any questions that the commission may have. I was notified by one abutter who had received the certified mail but did not have the availability to pick it up. I did provide a copy of the plan and the public hearing notice to the owners of 3 Grant Avenue. Other than that, I don't believe any reports were submitted to staff, or there were any other calls to my office. Any questions? I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions for members of the commission?
This one.
Linda, go ahead.
Paul, I'm familiar with this property pretty intensely. That generator looks like it's going down the bank. Is that where it's going? Over the hill and down the bank?
Yeah, it's going on the backside of what's now the existing hedge, on the backside of the lawn. So they're basically nestling it in. What's that?
It's down grade. So you're cutting into the grade?
Yeah, there is a small cut just to depress it even a little bit further down, or match the grading of the lawn area there. Yes.
Which puts it fairly close to the wetland at the bottom of the hill.
No, it's nowhere near the wetland. It's 50 feet off the wetland on the bottom of the hill is on the, if you look at the plan that was up there.
I got the aerial up.
Yeah, we're in excess of 50 feet, even with the grading to the isolated vegetative wetland.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Paul, I think that pretty much answered my question anyways, but the timber retainer is really just to accommodate the generator and level it out, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Any members of the public wishing to comment? Check the Zoom here. Nobody. Staff, do we have everything we need to close? Paul, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Do we have a
Motion to
motion to
close the
close?
public hearing.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second? Mike, thank you for the second. By roll call vote. Linda Williams.
Aye.
Mike Miserelli.
Aye.
Tim Brand.
Aye.
Joe Plantelski. And Seth Ingeborg votes aye. So
Thank you.
Paul. All right. And now
Come down to the fun area.
we have Wraith, 14 Easy Street, SE 48, 3792, represented by Don Bracken,
Who's away on vacation?
or possibly Ryan Maxwell. I
Yeah.
saw Ryan Maxwell on. Or maybe none of those people.
Does Don-
Yes,
back
Ryan
in
Maxwell,
position?
are you representing this? Someone bring him over.
Don's in New Hampshire for 2 weeks.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Ryan sees a window come up to accept it.
I think he accepted it. All right. Ryan Maxwell, are you taking this
Yes.
application?
I am. Yep. Don is on vacation, so you got me tonight.
Okay, thank you. Please introduce yourself for the record and then get started.
All right. Ryan Maxwell with Bracken Engineering for the record. So this notice of intent is a request to expand a brick parking area that was previously approved under a 2017 order of conditions, but was never fully built. The original order among other things, permitted the construction of a brick driveway that was wide enough for 2 cars, but as indicated on the plan, only a single car driveway was ever constructed. The proposed work falls within land subject to coastal storm flowage and within the buffer zone to a coastal bank, which is the Easy Street bulkhead across the street from the property. With this application, we've resubmitted the stormwater report that was filed with the 2017 order of conditions, as that information is still valid considering the brick parking area was originally included in that analysis. And essentially, the report is a comparison of pre and post-development surface conditions in which there is a reduction in impervious surfaces on the site, even with the full build out of that brick parking area. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions from members of the public or members of the commission, I should say first? All right, I have one. It's my understanding that although this is proposed from the notice of intent, that this work, or at least some of the work, has already taken place. Is that correct?
Oh, that would be news to me. No.
It's rough down there,
This
but I'm
is
not
the-
sure they got it all in yet.
This is the one I thought we had some concerns
Uh-oh.
about, that they had already started moving brick, but
I know they got it cut.
I think it's been started, but it doesn't really matter for the purpose of this application, but I think we just, as a reminder,
Don't do it.
don't do it if it hasn't been permitted. Any members of the public have questions or comments? Okay, staff, do we have everything we need to close? Mr. Maxwell, would you like to close?
I would love to close. Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to
Motion
close?
Close the public hearing.
Is there a second? Tim, thank you for the second. My roll call vote, Linda Williams,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Bill Plendowski, and Seth Egenborg votes aye. Thank you, Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you.
And that will take us to Laz Family Nominee Trust at 20 LaCoit
I don't
Road.
know if that's working because everybody's been going to the thing over there.
You can use the podium, yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get started, I am aware that Mr. Miserelli is going to recuse from this application. Does anyone else need to recuse? Because if so, we're going to be under the quorum requirement.
Hold on.
You all good? Okay. So Mr. Gasparo, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm before the commission tonight with the notice of intent application to create a sand dune along the base of an eroding coastal bank of Nantucket at 20 LaCoit Road. We had an order of conditions for this, pretty much exact same project, but the work never commenced and that order had expired. So we actually were before you at your last meeting with a certificate of compliant request to close that permit. And so we have shortened the length from the last time from 450 to 400 feet immediately in front of the structures on the property. And we have no structural elements included with this proposal. It is just using sand and beach grass. It would be temporary irrigation on the beach grass, and hope that it helps to both supply sand to the beach and slow the erosion a little bit of the coastal bank. We will have to request a continuance to the 8th while we wait for a response from Natural Heritage. But I would like to hear or try to address any concerns or questions from the commission in the meantime, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was wondering about that because the previous letter is from more than 5 years ago. So I'm glad you're back before NHESP.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I included that so they would have the reference for their file number and the review, but we simultaneously filed with them.
Thank you. Commissioners, Linda?
Just from a zoning perspective, are they able to move back to almost zero on their northerly front yard lot line? Give them some more room back there?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I mean, we would need to go to the zoning board of appeals for that kind of relief. And of course, there would be little bit outside the scope of this application, but just to hit on it, we would have to be able to do that in a way that then didn't disturb the adjacent conservation foundation property. So how close you can go is somewhat limited by that factor, but that's perhaps down the road a little bit.
Okay, because I know they're gonna put a lot of effort into this particular project. But if they can move back, that'll give them a little bit more time, because the ZBA has traditionally given variances all up and down that entire south coast.
And thank you. And that's not really the purpose of the hearing today. It's
not, but they'll be back before us if they go that route.
so do people have substantive questions on the proposed Dune that's before us? None? I think this is a great tactic in this location, so thank you for bringing it to the commission. Do any members of the public have questions or comments? And we don't have everything we need to close, so would you like to continue until August 8th?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Art. This will continue till August 8th.
Thank you.
All right. So that will take us to 33 Cliff Nominee Trust, 33 Cliff Road, SE 48, 3793, represented by Brian Madden. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. The proposed project before you involves installation of a proposed pool, patio, and some landscaping updates that are between the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone to BVW that encroaches onto the northeasterly portion of the project site. We had previously had submitted a request for determination of applicability to confirm the resource area boundaries as shown on the site plan. And again, all work activities are outside the 50-foot buffer zone. The proposed pool that is within the outer 100-foot buffer zone, there's about a 20-foot elevation change between where that is sited down to the elevation associated with the BVW. So certainly greater than a 2-foot separation will be afforded. There's some additional site improvements closer to Cliff Road that are outside the commission's jurisdiction. But we have proposed a subsurface infiltration to collect some of the patio runoff within the jurisdictional areas. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Do any members of the commission have questions or comments? Do any members of the public have questions or comments? Staff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Madden, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. And I just realized we're all in person, so we don't need to do roll call. We can just.
We're just so used to it.
So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
See what's easier that is.
Nobody's recused. Nobody abstains. That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. All right. That will take us to Albany, 39 Winoma Way, SE 48, 3796, represented by Art Gasparo. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you tonight with an application for a set of beach stairs to traverse the coastal bank. Other than Tom Nevers to get from the top of the bank down to the beach. There was a set of stairs on this property that had been destroyed by erosion, wave forces over the winter. And so we are back to propose a new set of stairs. We are proposing these stairs at a different location than where the other ones were. As a result of the erosion that occurred a little bit worse on the west end of the property where the stairs are. There's now essentially a vertical face there. Whereas on the eastern end of the property, the bank is still vegetated. And so the bank height is approximately about 36 feet or so. So we're going to need a set of stairs to be able to get down to the beach. So I understand that there may be some concerns. So I'll just address that, there is an easement on the west side of the property that does allow for, that other folks have some rights in. But we're not proposing the stairs in that location due to the condition of the bank. It would be extremely difficult to try to build the stairs there right now. My sense is that with some time and natural erosion of wind and rain, when that bank reaches its natural angle, or proposed, then those folks to come in and, propose to build a set of stairs there. But, right now, the stairs where we feel that they could be built, are as shown on the plan in the vegetated portion of the bank. And, again, we believe that it ultimately protects the interest of the commission by, it meets the interest protected by the commission by containing the pedestrian activity to just the stairs, as opposed to trying to make their way up and down the bank. So I'm happy to take questions or concerns should you have them.
Thank you, Art. Any commissioners have questions or comments? Yes, Linda.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at the aerials and I know they were pretty ravaged by one of those storms. Those stairs were still there in 2021. They were still there in 2023 on the aerial. So my question, all right. If there is an easement for access to stairs that are still showing on the aerial in the spring of 2023, and this is another set of stairs going on the east side of that property, does that not mean that there's potential for two sets of beach stairs to go down to the beach on the same piece of property?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes.
Yep, go ahead.
Exactly correct.
And if I may respond to that
Yeah.
too, because it's tough to see, multiple accesses used to essentially access the same piece of beach.
Yeah.
But it's not unique to this application. There are other properties that we've permitted that have a similar situation where there's a stair meant particularly for the owner's use, and then there's an easement meant for a butter's use. So it has happened other times, even in my tenure here. And there's nothing restricting us from allowing it in the performance standards as much as we might not like it.
But is there any reason why they can't just have one set of stairs for the owners as well as the abutter or whoever the easement, whoever that easement's in favor of? I know there was a big battle in Nantucket right on the creeks with two sets of stairs. I don't know if that, I think that finally got to court. But I'm just wondering if there's why we need two sets of stairs when this set of stairs is on the Albani's property. Why can't everybody just use one set of stairs instead of sticking two up here? That's just a,
Well, I'll do Art's work for him, but he said earlier in this hearing that the location that the easement is at, the condition of the stairs is so deteriorated and the condition of the bank in that area is so eroded, it's not possible to have a safe set of stairs in that location at the present time. That's the purpose of the application, but if you want to say anything more,
question Art's
feel free.
representation of that, but has the staff been out there to see what this looks like? And through you, Mr. Chairman?
What do you think, Will?
Fairly comfortable with the situation at hand, if that helps.
Any,
I don't think any of these are off. I don't know what's happening here.
I think they're on, yeah.
Oh.
So say that again, please.
Yes, I don't have my inspection report in front of me, but I believe I was there last week and I'm entirely comfortable with the situation at hand.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, if that other set of stairs got just destroyed and the easement holders that it runs in favor of the butters want to put another stair back in there, we wouldn't say necessarily, no, I'm sorry, there's already another set of stairs for the owner of the property, correct?
No, they would have to come to this commission
the
to seek
routine.
the same permitting that the owner's doing now, and we'd have to judge the application on its merits at that time. But there's nothing that would prevent us from allowing that set of stairs simply because there's another stair, a few 100 feet away from it. It's not how the performance standards work.
Okay, that would be my concern.
Okay. Any other commissioners?
And Mr. Chair, out in Pocomo, for the public's information, it's fairly common. Well, I shouldn't say fairly common, but there's plenty in properties in Pocomo that have like these shared easement stairways. So
Okay, other commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the public? Yes, please come up to the microphone, Art, if you'll allow him. Please introduce yourself for the record and then say your piece.
So what's the same stairs proposed now? I think you kind of addressed it. When we were putting on making the application collectively, all these holders until just past week, we found out that the applicants submitted this set of stairs. So our concern is when we come before the board, but will we be going to do such stairs? And the other concern is that there's 6 easement parties to the easement, and including the applicants. And the other 5, they weren't notified as interested parties. So I think, as if, they hold real estate rights for this, they weren't notified. The applicants have notified them on any other matter concerning the stairs. They intentionally, I would say, omitted notifying them in this case.
Thank you. Art, would you like to speak to any about our notifications that may or may not have gone out?
Yes, thank you. We sent out the abutter notifications per the list received from the assessor. I don't even know which parties have rights in the easement. I did research that. It's a joint project that I'm doing with Blackman Associates who did the plan. I don't really see it as particularly relevant, and I really don't believe the owner purposely. I don't know. We wouldn't have done that notification other than what we had to do, because they're not impacting where all those folks have rights. We're located in a completely different location, so I don't know why that really would be germane. But there was no, intent or anything like that on our part. We use the standard abutters list.
Thank you. And thank you both. And just for clarity, because I know it can be confusing, there's a legal requirement for notification to abutters that is separate from the potential notification to people who own rights in an easement. It's based on the distance away from the property, and it might not exactly align to all the people who have rights to the easement. And that's maybe why it wasn't received by everybody. I don't think the applicant is trying to deceive anybody, but unfortunately, if they are, that's not really germane to our process here. I mean, we're here to just evaluate the application on its merits. But to go back and answer your first question, nothing about this application influences at all a separate application for a notice of intent for your own staircase. You can bring an NOI to this commission for a staircase in that easement area at any time. And we can't tell you right now if it will be granted or not, because we have to judge it based on its merits. But if it meets the performance standards for the protected interests that are in the resource areas that we protect, then it will be granted. So bring the application in and we'll hear it just like we're hearing this one. And there's nothing about the current application that will influence any future applications. Thank you.
Fair enough. I understand that these other easement holders might be just beyond the butter zone, I'm an owner of 50 and owner, next door. They also have, they're also using language this, they were not notified. I just think this maybe should this be continued, so they could be notified?
With respect, the legal notices that were required were sent out. They're in our packet. We have the information that was needed. The question as to whether the easement holder should be notified or not isn't really a Conservation Commission issue. It's a neighborhood issue. And if you feel slighted, I feel bad for you, but there's nothing we can do in our process. Well, if anybody else who wasn't notified feels slighted, there's nothing we can do to compel them to be notified. People could be terrible neighbors that can purposely do stuff that is mean or in slight of their neighbors. And if they meet the performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act, that's all we're here to review. So I thank you for your comment, but it's really not germane to our application here today. Anyone else from the public? Okay, let me check the Zoom. All right. Staff, do we have everything we need to close this application?
Super quick comment. My microphone is off and I was also told I need to yell into it via text. Just quickly for the abutters, I'm Will. My email address is on the Conservation Commission website. I'd be happy to clarify. I have to ask some questions and send some emails to find out, but I'd be happy to clarify with the assessor's office what the parameters for like who in an access easement gets notified and at least find out what that
It's a private
process
easement.
is. I'm sure it's complicated. But I'll give you my business card or something before the end of the meeting. That's it.
Thank you. And I'm glad you went because it reminded me of one comment that I forgot to say. And without trying to be rude to any project representatives, I've said this many, many times at this point. Any applications for beach stairs need to have an associated permit drawing, architectural drawing with them. You have it?
He's whipping that.
Mr. Chairman, I have it. And I received it yesterday, so I didn't want to file late information. But since I'm actually here in person, which is so nice, I can submit it for the record.
Yes, if we can all look at it and a commission could, and a copy could be given to the commission to be kept. Okay, then it would be considered part of the record.
You gotta go to the HCC too.
That's
right?
why they're.
Yeah, that's why you got him now.
I just didn't get a chance to, and I didn't want to file it yesterday and have you guys be getting stuff the day before the meeting.
That's
Hey.
okay.
Better than getting it at the meeting.
I've seen.
You have
That's for
to, you have to keep that and have it entered into the packet as part of the record. So that it can be, and then we could also deal with it in conditions saying that an architectural drawing was submitted. And we have a receipt of that. So here's 2 copies for you.
I'll have them up tomorrow. Thank you very much.
But other than that, I do believe we have everything to close. So Mr. Gaspar, would you like to close? Is there a motion to close?
Motion to.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? All right, Tim will take the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, that carries unanimously. And that will move us on to 8 C Street LLC at 8 C Street, also represented by Arcus Sparrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a notice of intent for work located downtown within land subject to coastal storm flowage. We're not in the buffer zones to any other resource areas. We're proposing a barn storage structure on a slab to be located within an existing gravel parking area. And a slight reconfiguration of that gravel parking area, which will remain gravel. The barn will have flood vents And so I believe that it meets the performance standards for, not impacting the flow of floodwaters within the land subject to coastal storm flowage. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions or concerns, should you have any.
Yes, Linda.
It's a nice building. I saw it at the HCC on Tuesday and they bent over backwards on this building because there was one there a long, long time ago. And it was a nice building. That's all I can say.
And it looks like it
I
has,
know it's outside our purview, but it's a really nice building.
it also looks like it has a car elevator in it, so.
So it's also a pool building.
Yeah.
Any other commissioners' comments or questions? Okay, members of the public, any comments or questions? Check the Zoom. Seeing none, staff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Linda. And by roll call vote, all in favor, please say aye, or not by roll call
Aye.
vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? That carries unanimously.
Mountain Queen.
Okay, and that will bring us on to Jelemy at 29 Quays Road, SC 483794, represented by Arcus Barrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application is for work on an existing residential structure within the buffer zone to a coastal bank out in Quays. The work is to put a roof over an existing permitted deck. We are requesting a waiver for the work on the basis of no reasonable alternative with no adverse impact. Like I said, the roof, or essentially turning it into a porch, would occur over a deck that's been in existence for quite some time. The work would all be done with hand labor. There'd be no excavation at all, be supported onto the existing deck. And really the owner and the applicant is just seeking to be able to get some shade on the north side of the house, facing out to the water. He's tried umbrellas and has been defeated by the wind. And so we believe that there would be, again, no adverse impact on any of the interests protected by the commission, given the existing structural elements already at this location and the resource areas in question. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions or concerns should you have any.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the commission? All right, I take your point about no adverse impact, but I believe that a reasonable alternative clearly exists. If you look at the size and shape of the deck, it's possible to have a roofed in area to provide shade completely outside the 50-foot buffer zone. It might not be the exact size or shape or configuration the applicant wants, but there is certainly a reasonable alternative.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, that's actually the 25 that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
We're
that's true.
We're within the 50 and the 25. And what I would say, if I may, is that, the waivers have been granted in the past for the deck as it exists. So, there's already really a waiver in place. I mean, there's been certificates of compliance issued for that same structural element. And, I would completely agree and understand concerns from the commission should there be any expansion of all of the proposal outside of the footprint of the deck. But I think that, a structure within an existing structural footprint for a structure that has a certificate of compliance, I believe is reasonable. And really, we're already within the 50 anyway. And so, in terms of protected interests, I don't see where the roof has any impact on any of the individual protected interests by the commission. And so we think that as proposed is reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it does impact wetland scenic views. And there is an area I take your point about where we're looking being in the 25, but there is an area down here that has deck that's outside the 50. So maybe I'm alone in this, but I think that independent of the structure being there and the past certificates of compliance, we shouldn't be permitting things that don't really meet the waiver requirements. I mean, the adverse impact I hear, but it needs to meet both parts of the waiver requirement, the reasonable alternative as well. So that's my personal opinion. Would you like to say anything, or should we go to the public?
Please go to public.
Okay, any members of the public wishing to comment? It doesn't seem like it. So yes, Linda, would you like to say something?
There's a lot of deck on this house. A lot of it's actually closer to the top of the coastal bank than this section. And, oh, it's on. Mine's won't go off. And you're only talking about the rectangular area highlighted up there, right? Or,
Just the red rectangle.
yeah.
That's hard to see.
And this deck is elevated, isn't it?
The deck is up from, no, I mean, it's at grade, but then it comes up,
Up.
the width of the, joist.
I understand what Seth is saying, but in this particular situation, I think some of these decks have been there for quite a while. Looking at the elevations of the house, I've seen it from the roadside several times. Looking at it up there on the screen and on my screen, I don't really have, it's just that rectangular section, Art, right there.
That's correct.
With the door and the two windows. So it continues the shed roof already.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that, frankly. And other times I may, but given the patio, the deck, the extension of the what really is a pent roof already out over the porch, I don't really have an issue with it because of those. And you're not going any closer to the bluff at that point. I don't really have an issue with this one. Some other time I might, but I don't really have an issue on this one.
Okay, how do other commissioners feel?
I'll concur with Linda's comments on that. I realize it can be difficult, especially from wetland scenic views, but the architecture on the plan looks okay to me.
Put
Thank
in
you.
the envelope of the house.
All right.
I agree.
Okay. So seeing no other comments, staff, do we have everything we need to close this application?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Gaspar, would you like to close? Is there a motion to close?
Make a motion to close.
Second.
Thank you. We're gonna do roll call this time. Linda Williams.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Joe Plandowski. And Seth Higginborg is opposed. Thank you.
Yes, that's the reason for the roll call.
All right, so that carries with 4 commissioners assenting and 1 opposed. And that concludes our notice of intent for tonight's hearing. We have no amended orders of condition tonight. So that will conclude our public hearing. It will move us on to public meeting. And we'll start with the request for determination of applicability. And we have 1, which is at 102 Walwinet Road Nominee Trust, 102 Walwinet Road. Ryan Maxwell, are you taking this?
I am.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Ryan Maxwell with Bracken Engineering for the record. This RDA is a septic system upgrade with work that falls within 100 feet of an isolated vegetated wetland. No septic components are proposed within the buffer zone to the IVW, just some regrading associated with the septic system install. The new septic is a microfast system that will be replacing a conventional septic system, and all existing septic system components will either be removed or abandoned in place as noted on the plan. And that is it for this one.
Thank you. Do members of the commission have any questions or comments? Staff, have you been out to the site? And if so, do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I was out at the site 2 days ago, 3 days ago, however many days ago. I'm recommending we issue a -3 for this RDA, which answers both boxes checked, that the project and work are within the buffer zone, but will not alter or impact the resource area as the project is designed.
Okay. Thank you. Would a commissioner like to make a motion to issue the RDA with the -3 recommendation? Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, that carries unanimously.
Thanks.
And that will move us on to minor modifications. And we have one, which is Easton Street LLC, 55 Easton Street, SE 483590, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. The minor modification involves relocation of AC units. The AC units will be cantilevered on a platform above the flood zone elevation. So there's no new ground supports within the 50-foot buffer zone to the offsite isolated vegetated wetland. You can see those on the northwest corner of the house. And also proposed locations of propane tanks on concrete pad on the northeast corner of the house that will be anchored and strapped to the existing or the dwelling under construction. And with that, I'll turn over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Do members of the commission have any questions or comments?
It's down there.
All right. So nothing. Would somebody like to make a motion to issue the minor modification?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right. Linda made the motion. Mike seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? That carries unanimously. Thank you,
you.
Brian.
Thank you.
So that will take us to certificates of compliance. We'll start with 49A Meadowview Drive LLC at 51 Meadowview Drive. And we'll take both these together, SE 483414 and SE 483630. And these are represented by Ryan Maxwell.
Is it possible for Will to fill you in on, I actually wasn't ready for,
Okay. He's gonna help you out and
Thank
Will's
you.
Will's gonna take these.
take it away, Will.
Permission to do this quickly, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
All right, so it's for pool and patio. I've been out there. I'm recommending we issue these COCs. I have the relevant continuing conditions written down. I'll do those separately though, but I'm recommending that we issue both of these certs with continuing conditions.
Okay, before we do that, do any members of the commission have questions or comments? Okay, so let's start with SC 483414. What are the continuing conditions that or ongoing conditions that you're recommending?
All right, the ongoing conditions for SE 483414 are condition 19, the pool shall not be drained or discharged into an area within the jurisdiction of the commission. Condition 20, the pool shall not be chemically treated between November 1st and May 1st. Condition 21, all chemical treatments shall stop 3 weeks prior to any draining or discharging of the pool. Condition 22, all lighting shall be directed downwards and away from the resource area. And condition 23, the applicant shall provide the contact information for the company maintaining the pool. Pool company shall provide 48-hour notice of any draining to the commission with a plan showing where the pool shall be drained to.
Works for me.
All right, and let's take the conditions for SC 483630.
This is mildly redundant, but it's the newer version of our lighting conditions. because this was a newer permit. So condition 20, all exterior lighting shall be directed away from the resource area and in compliance with chapter 102 of the code of the town of Nantucket.
All right. So is there a motion to issue the 2 certificates of compliance with the ongoing conditions that Will just listed out?
So move, Mr. Chairman, on both of them.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That carries unanimously on SE 48, 3414, and 3630. And that will move us on to Coonahan, 13 Swain Street, SE 48, 3647. Will, are you doing this?
Feel free, Will.
Go for it.
All right.
Thanks.
So I find my cursor.
We moving too fast, please?
Well, normally no, but this room is a little tough.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I request that when we get through the certificate of compliances, we just take a 2-minute break for
Yes.
restroom?
At the end of certs, we will take a intermission.
Mental health.
All right.
This one was for the, I'm just looking for, it's for the raising and relocation of this structure at 13 Swain Street, right?
Yes.
I think some way I have these things right in front
On
of
the
me.
craziest lot. you'll ever
Can't
see.
read the screen, but 13 Swain Street, I was recommending that we issue this cert. There were no continuing conditions. It was just land subject to coastal storm flowage. I do have notes about that.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the commission, or would somebody like to make a motion to issue the certificate of compliance?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Will, or not Will.
Whoever.
Thank you, Linda, for the.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you. Thanks, Linda, for the second, and thanks, Will, for the presentation. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? No. Any abstain? No. That carries unanimously. And we'll now take 45 Shakama Road LLC at 45 Shakama Road, SC 48 3411. Brian Madden, are you taking this one?
Sure, I'll give Will a break.
All right.
Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. This order of conditions was issued back on June 2nd, 2021 for the improvements to the existing Shakamo Road traveled way within the right-of-way and easement to access a new driveway for a house that was ultimately constructed at 45 Shakamo, with portions of the driveway and associated grading retaining walls within the outer 100-foot buffer zone, to an IVW on site, and some wetlands along the traveled way, both BVW and Coastal Bank along Shakamo Road right-of-way easement. We submitted photographs and conducted site inspections. Everything has been completed in substantial compliance. There was an approved turnout along Shakamo Road traveled way that that was not constructed. There are no ongoing conditions as part of the order. And with that, I'll turn over to questions.
Thank you. Do members of the commission have any questions or comments?
No, I just hate to drive.
I certainly remember this one, having talked extensively on this application.
Yeah.
Will, have you been out to the site, and do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes, sir. My recommendation would be that we issue the certificate. There were no ongoing conditions either with the driveway roadway situation.
Okay, is there a motion to issue this cert with no ongoing conditions?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? No, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And last, 212 Popus Road Nominee Trust, 212 Popus Road. I don't think Jeff Blackwell's here. So, Will, go ahead.
Just also making a recess document quickly to put up on screens.
You
Let
can
me
handle
switch
it.
here.
You're a millennial.
I'm not good at multitasking. All right. Oh, I have it playing now. Sorry. I have no continuing conditions on this, I can tell you that much now.
Okay.
Pretty much where the other house is.
It's. So it's recommending we issue this cert. There's no continuing conditions. There was an after the fact demolition that was covered by this NOI, and I think some minor construction that had taken place, but the NOI covered the actual construction and relocation of his home. But no ongoing conditions, and recommending we issue the certification, the certification.
Would somebody like to make a motion to issue the certificate of compliance?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Linda, for the second.
We got the tag team thing going here.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? No.
Me.
So that finishes our certificates of compliance. We will take a break until 7:40 for rest, relaxation, and restroom. Please be quick because we still have more to do.
Well, well, I got this up. Okay. I have an issue here.
Are we good now? All right, thank you all. We're back from recess. Everybody is back in the room, and we're going to continue our meeting today with orders of condition. Will sent these out to everybody, and we'll be putting them up on the screen as well. And the first was closed at last meeting, but it's Town of Nantucket, My Comet Pond, SE 483764. If you want to put that up, and we can have a discussion on that.
Oh, this is the one I have to recuse from.
From the My Comet Pond dredging?
No, not that one, the next one. I just didn't have the my comment one up. I only had that one right to the program.
Bear with me here, guys, because we're gonna be juggling some windows. There's some difficulties afoot. All right, so this is shared on Zoom and also up on the projector, but I can make edits on my screen, which you can't see. It's for the record, but I can share that afterwards if we.
All right, so My Comet Pond, Will, would you like to run us through this, please?
So this was for the My Comet Pond dredging project. This order permits the dredging and removal of material from My Comet Pond with the goal of reducing eutrophication within land under water bodies, coastal dune barrier beach, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and the relevant buffer zones. Waivers are not required for this project. We had our NHESP finding, and then an additional finding, number 2, the commission finds that this project will provide an overwhelming long-term net benefit to the resource area, but does not require a waiver as the proposed project is water dependent. And then we just had our condition 18. This was after a discussion with Jeff. We had been looking at previous dredging permits that we've issued for like Wolfus Harbor, let's say. And the conditions that we've written in the past didn't really apply. But we felt that the narrative and plans in the actual notice of intent were extremely robust and detailed, and we felt that condition 18 covered that. But if anybody has anything else, very open to.
Anybody?
Nope.
And with respect for additional finding number 2, although I agree, I don't know why we need that in there. I think we should just take that out.
Oh my God, Seth, take one out.
Well, I mean, it doesn't
It
really
doesn't
say
do
anything. It
anything.
doesn't do anything. It doesn't say anything. If it doesn't need a waiver, it doesn't need a waiver. It's just take it out. It's subjective. I mean, I believe it. I think, but it doesn't do anything for the permit overview.
Are you ready for a motion?
Yes, we're ready for a motion to
As
issue
amended.
the order of conditions as amended.
That's my motion.
Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you, Tim. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? No. You got that, Will?
Eventually. No, just make a note and then take it out.
We need to wait or should we move on? Okay. You just make a note or something. Make a note.
Write
of
it down on a
PDF.
piece of paper.
I'm totally fine with that.
You got a sticky over there.
I'm fine with writing them on paper, but I know that we've had issues with that.
Just
Write
stick
it on
to-
paper and
Stick it to something.
write it on paper and hold it up to the camera so people can see it.
All right, we're ready for the next one?
All right, the next one is Two Pilgrims LLC, 15 and 17 Pilgrim Road.
And that's the one I'm recused.
Yes, I'm aware. And Will, when you're ready, and if you'd like to take us through this, that would be great.
Yeah, no, I know. Don't take it. It's not definitely a good idea. No.
I have Word on my computer. If you
You want
want to
my
use this
computer?
computer?
You don't mind? I've got them all up online. Want me to send you back the email that you sent me? Where are you? There it is. It's up.
All right, go ahead.
Come to a scraping off.
15 and 17 Program Road. So 15 and 17 Pilgrim Road, this order permits the redevelopment of residential property, including construction of a single-family residence in port with a circuit of landscaping, grading, utility installation, with a buffer zone for bordering, but for the wetland. Waivers are not required for this project. We have an NHEFP finding. And conditions 18 and 19. We don't have it.
Anybody have any thoughts, additions, comments? Okay, is there a motion to issue this as drafted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Okay.
All right, by roll call, Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Joe Plandowski, Seth Engelberg, aye, and Linda Williams is recused. Okay, that'll take us on to Granick at 244 Mattocket Road. When you're ready, Will.
Yes, it is so. Yeah. You have one additional finding.
This is for 344 Mattocket Road. This order permits the replacement of a conventional septic system with an innovative alternative system.
Does not fall within the map habitat areas.
The one with associated landscaping, creating and utility installation, and then buffers under a border and vegetated wetland areas in that applies to this project. Do not fall in any GFC. Condition 18 in June.
Any thoughts, comments, additions? Is there a motion to approve as drafted?
Motion to approve is drafted.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That is issued unanimously. And that will bring us on to Somerset.
How these aren't in order.
At 5 High Brush Path. If you want to go when you're ready, Will.
This one is a thing.
Five High Brush Path. This order permits the construction of a pool, cabana, covered porch deck, and pergola, along with associated landscaping, grading, and utility installation within buffer zone to a bordering vegetative wetland. Waivers are not required for this project. The area does not fall within mapped NHESP habitat. We had our general conditions 18 and 19. And then condition 20, the pool shall not be drained or discharged into an area within the commission's jurisdiction. 21, the pool shall not be chemically treated between November 1st and May 1st. 22, all chemical treatment shall stop 3 weeks prior to any draining or discharging of the pool. 23, the applicant shall provide the contact information for the company maintaining the pool. The pool company shall provide 48-hour notice of any draining to the commission with a plan showing where the pool shall be drained to. 24, given the topography of the site, any pool draining that needs to take place shall be pumped to a truck and disposed of properly at the sewage treatment facility. And 25, all exterior lighting shall be directed away from the resource area and in compliance with Chapter 102 of the Code of the Town of Nantucket.
Thoughts, comments, additions?
I have a question on the chapter 102.
Yep.
How does that square with the new document that just came out on outdoor lighting guide, which is really great? I mean, it covers everything.
From the Nantucket side.
Yes, the lighting guide that you're referencing, sponsored by Nantucket Lights, is the same same group who went through the process to get the outdoor lighting code changed. So chapter 102 is those updates that are in that guide. Go ahead, Will.
It was in the warrant from last year, not this year, but last year.
I was just gonna say through you, Mr. Chair, I can't remember if I sent that out to commissioners last week, but that was sent to me and it is excellent.
I got it.
Comprehensive,
It is
so.
tremendous.
There's
Covers
pamphlets of
everything.
it all over the place.
Yes, if anyone wants a physical copy, I know that group is willing to give you a physical copy.
Yeah.
I would say though, on this order, we were using in 24, we were using a reference to the illicit discharge regulations is like chapter 300 and something. I don't see that in here. So let's make sure all of our orders and conditions have the same conditions.
We haven't seen it. You want to go down this one? We should.
No ones from last meeting had that.
Cut and paste. Cut and paste.
Through you, I won't be able to fix that right now, but it's noted. That works.
Can you find it and read it out for us?
Yes. Sorry. The condition reads as this: given the topography of the site, any pool draining that needs to take place shall be pumped by truck and disposed of properly at the sewage treatment facility or be in compliance with Chapter 361 of the Code of the Town of Nantucket. That's that last sentence.
So that's been read into the record. Are commissioners comfortable with issuing this as amended with that additional language, or would you like to hold it over to the next meeting?
No, all it does is clarify where that statute.
Okay, would you like to
is
make
located.
would you
I'll
like to
that
make a motion?
Yep.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That carries unanimously as amended.
Yeah, I want to stay there for 1 second. Isn't this the one where you wanted some language in there that no structures, which means no retaining walls, no. Wasn't this where we talked about the planting beds at High Brush? Because that's what I made a note of. This is this one, right?
Yes.
Can I?
Because we should add that, whatever you wanted for that one.
That's how I discovered that I can't edit Microsoft Word tonight, but I wanted to add an additional finding for that if you think
Yeah.
that's appropriate, that the planting beds are to be non-structural. I was gonna write.
Yeah.
Okay, so we now need a motion to reconsider.
I'll make a motion to reconsider High Brush.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll
Any
make a motion
opposed?
now with that new condition about the,
Okay, well,
I think that's
first,
not structural.
first of all, read out that condition, Will, and give us a number for it. 26, I'm assuming.
For the pool condition, not the
The
additional.
planting beds,
The planting beds, yeah.
Okay, the planting beds, I was,
number 26.
I was gonna do an additional finding number 2, but we can do a finding 26, doesn't matter. Either way.
I think it should be as a condition, yeah.
So condition 26.
Yeah.
Was gonna be that the planting beds shown around the foundation of the dwelling are to be non-structural.
Well, they were beyond the pool. Weren't they going over the cliff? Yeah, all around it.
Yeah, they were all around the proposed deck.
So we
Let
can
me-
say, all proposed planting beds shown on the NOI submission are to be non-structural.
Let me check the plan for 1 second here.
Yeah.
Sure. All proposed planting beds shown on the plan of record are to be non-structural.
Chapter 361.
Yeah. The language you had before.
Yeah, so this order of conditions is being amended to have number 24 now reference chapter 361 of the town of Nantucket code, and also a condition 26 is being added indicating that all planting beds are to be non-structural. With those amendments, do we have a motion to issue the order of conditions as amended?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That now carries unanimously. All right. The next up is Gregory and Wilkinson, 55 Belvedere Avenue.
Oh, same changes.
And Will, do you want to go over this one?
Yep.
You don't,
I got the pool condition.
you don't have to read everything out, but
The same two conditions that we just did, well, except for the retaining walls. It's the same section 300 or whatever that was.
yeah, just do a overview.
This is for the construction of a new dwelling and pool at 55 Belvedere. We have conditions 18 and 19, and then all of our general pool conditions that we just went over.
They lock us in every. Yeah, it happened every single time we were up here. They thought we had to put a trash thing in the door.
Keep them all.
So-
And we're gonna add the language to condition 24 for chapter 361. I believe that's it.
Yeah, just read out that language again, so it's within this record.
Yep. So that is. Given the topography of the site, any pool draining that needs to take place shall be pumped by truck and disposed of properly at the sewage treatment facility or be in compliance with chapter 361 of the code of the town of Nantucket.
Is there a motion to issue the order of conditions as amended?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? That carries unanimously as amended. And the next one is Seahorse Lane LLC, 5 Grant Avenue. Will, do you want to give us the overview here?
This was the placement of a generator at 5 Grant Ave, no NHESP, and we had simple conditions 18 and 19.
Any comments, questions, additions, changes? there a motion to issue as drafted?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Carries unanimously. And then we have Wraith at 14 Easy Street. Will,
Simple.
overview again.
Parking area, 14 Easy Street, plan subject to posted joint fire. The conditions are,
Shame on
I'm opening it, but
It's 18 and 19.
yeah, it's 18 and 19.
Standard
you.
conditions.
It doesn't fall within the map down.
Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, additions, changes? Is there a motion to issue the order of conditions as drafted?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Almost got there. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Mike, for the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? No, carries unanimously.
Record that continued.
The court was continued. And then we have 33 Cliff Nominee Trust, 33 Cliff Road. Will, please, give us the overview here.
Yep. 623.
Construction of a pool and patio. No NHESP, conditions 18 and 19. We're gonna have our same pool and lighting conditions. I'm gonna have to reread 24. I really don't know how this happened. I'm just copy and pasted in old list. So for the record, the language there will be, and that's condition 24 that'll be amended again. Given the topography of the site, any pool draining that needs to take place shall be pumped by truck and disposed of properly at the sewage treatment facility or be in compliance with chapter 361 of the code of the town of Nantucket.
Is there a motion to issue as amended?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
There's a second. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Carries unanimously.
Now we got beach stairs.
Yep, next we have 39 Winoma Way, Albany. Will, please give us the overview.
Got more to do with my equipment limitation.
You're the computer geek.
Oh my God. Here we go. All right. This was for the installation of beach access stairs on coastal bank. No NHESP, conditions 18 and 19. I don't know how the lighting condition got on there. I don't think there's lighting proposed on the stairs, but I like lighting conditions when there is lighting proposed, but I don't think there was lighting proposed here.
No.
No, there was none.
No, I've never seen lighting on the stairs.
I've seen a couple applications
people have
come
done
with
that.
lighting, but no, not for this one.
So that'll be removed.
Okay, so we'll take that out. Anyone else have thoughts? I think also somewhere maybe in the finding, we need to say that a architectural drawing for the stairs was received by the commission and entered into the record.
I had that in my notes.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Would that be an appropriate additional finding?
I think that would be an appropriate additional finding. You can say at the meeting on 7/25/2024, an architectural drawing was delivered by the applicant's representative in person, and physical copies were received by the commission as part of the record. Yes. Okay, thank you. Physically and digitally.
Motion to approve with that modification.
Okay, is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? That carries unanimously with the amendments and modifications.
Another simple one.
And now we have 8C Street, LLC at 8C Street. You want to talk about this, Will?
C Street.
The barn.
There we go. 8C Street. Construction of a garage and a loft. Barn. The area does not fall within a NHESP, and we had our general conditions 18 and 19.
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That carries unanimously. And finally, we have Jelemy at 29 Quays Road. Will, you want to go over this?
You got the lighting thing in there again. That's appropriate on something like this, isn't it? Because you're adding a structure that's probably gonna have a light somewhere in it.
Yes.
I put it on
But
anything.
let's hear the overview first.
All right, this order permits the construction of a roof over an existing deck within buffer zone to a coastal bank. A waiver is required for this project. No NHESP. We had condition 18, 19, and then 20 with our exterior lighting. All exterior lighting shall be directed away from the resource area and in compliance with chapter 102 of the Code of the Town of Nantucket.
And the waiver being requested is below.
And the waiver required to section 390-10B5 that all projects that which are not water dependent shall maintain at least a 25-foot undisturbed area adjacent to a coastal bank, and that all structures which are non-water dependent shall be located at least 50 feet from a coastal bank. The commission finds that placing a roof over the already existing footprint of the porch will have no additional adverse impact to the coastal bank. Therefore, the commission grants a waiver under section 393F3A of the Nantucket Wetlands Regulations.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I know you want a roll call this.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we'll do by roll call vote. Linda Williams,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Tim Brain, Joe Pandowski, and Seth Ingeborg is opposed. So that concludes our orders of condition. Will, despite all your technical difficulties, thank you for getting everything to us. And that will bring us to extension of order, which we have none today. And then it will bring us to other business. The first thing to do is approve the minutes from March 21st, 2024. People had a chance to look at those minutes, and is there any comments, questions, or a motion to approve?
A motion to approve as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Nope. Any abstain? That carries unanimously. And monitoring reports, I don't believe we have any monitoring reports.
I'm 99% sure that we don't, but I can't check.
There's none in the packet, so
It doesn't exist.
doesn't exist this week. It'll bring us to enforcement actions and potential enforcement actions. And we have one listed on the agenda here, which is 10 and 16 Ocean Avenue, the Summer House.
I have to recuse, but are there any other enforcement?
Okay.
I'm going
So-
over here.
All right, Linda will be recused. And we will start this hearing process with an update from the staff.
So thank you, Seth. We have representatives from all the involved parties here tonight, and I think everybody that's here right now was able to make the site visit yesterday. I guess I'm looking at the four of you right now. So we did make a site visit to the summer house yesterday, with arts as built in hand. And I think we've kind of been able to see, what's been pointed out that's happened over the last few years or so, more than that. But I think that we probably would want to start I just got lost in my own sentence, but we'd probably want to start with testimony or
Yep. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're first gonna take the testimony of representatives on behalf of the summer house, since they are the person who the enforcement action has been issued against. And then after that, we will take any testimony on behalf of abutters or other interests. So who would like to proceed on behalf of the summer house? Please approach the stand and introduce yourself for the record.
Sarah Toronto Perez, I'm returning for the owner of the summer house, who's Danielle. Better? Not used to talking. This is the sort of an investigative enforcement order. I feel, the order itself, required us to file, an existing conditions site plan, in response to, a letter that had been, written by Attorney Cohen, I believe, back in January of 2024. And again, it was sort of renewed in April of this year. I think the enforcement order issued sometime in June. And it required that, a current condition site plan be prepared, and that, a site visit be conducted, and then that we appear in front of you, to report what we found. We didn't write the letters identifying the issues, but I guess I'll sort of, preempt and go through them. I do think it's important to provide some, historical background. I've done a lot of research, since being brought on board the past couple of weeks. And I think, while doesn't certainly govern what happens today with the existing conditions, it does provide important context for how we got to where we are today and how the conditions on the ground are as you see them today. But reviews of Nantucket Nantucket Historical Association photographs, both aerial and ground photographs, as well as the building jacket that's associated with these properties, confirms that from the 1920s until 1956, there were three main structures on 16 and 17 Ocean Drive. There was the main summer house building on the roadside. And then there was the depot building, because this was below the bluff was the railroad tracks. And there was actually a railroad depot building. And that was initially in 1927 used as a tea house called the Moby Dick Tea Room. And then out in front of that, on the beach in the area where you see the cleared sand on the ground today, aerial photographs from the 20s, 30s, and 40s confirmed there was a single-story building in that area. And that was operated by Mr. Howe in the 20s as the Moby Dick Tea Room. Some point it was sold to Clem Reynolds and his wife. And in the 40s through 1963, they operated the White Whale Inn. And down below in these buildings, this one-story building was the Moby Dick Lounge. That burned down in 1956. And ultimately the property was sold to the Wiley family. And they're the ones who constructed the cabanas and the pool that you see today. It opened in 1963. And that fence around it, the seaward edge and the sides of that fence remain as they were constructed. Obviously, the fence doesn't remain, but that configuration and the pool since 1963 through to the present. Building jacket records again indicate that in he built, by the way, he built the cabanas along the side as well as the pool, its apron and all the fencing around. It was sold in 1980 to David Ewing. And in 1982, there was a building permit pulled for the complete renovation of the kitchen. It was $20,000 in 1982. And I still need to review that, but I believe that is when the kitchen was, two of those cabanas were connected. In 1984, there was a walk-in cooler building permit added. $10,000 is listed on the building permit application. That was pulled by the subsequent owner, Sandy Rubin. And then in 1986 is when my client purchased the property, and her husband ran it for all those years until 2021 when he passed away. And the only structural alteration that have occurred during their
exterior structural alteration that has occurred during their ownership. It's in 1991, a building permit issued for the re-siding, roofing, and new doors and windows on it was a cabana that housed employee housing, and it's now that shop. And it was turned into the shop. There were, floors and interior reconfigurations within the cabana, several permits, but nothing on the exterior. And we believe that the aerial images that we've provided and the town's GIS aerial images confirm that through the 90s, through the 2000s, 2010s, up into the present day, that footprint, and within that footprint, those structures have remained the same during their ownership. Again, with the one exception being the cabana that's now the shop. At some point, we noticed, and I say this in my letter that I filed with the commission last week, the deck off the seawardmost cabana extended, part is here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think by 6 feet into the dune. It looks like that happened in the 2020s. So not something in the past, but something recent. Danielle was not aware of it and doesn't know when her husband did it, or if in fact there's any permits. There doesn't appear to be an order of conditions for that work, and we have volunteered to remove it. I will say that the record does confirm and I think demonstrate that every step of the way and every year this property was inspected. It's licensed annually as a hotel and a bar, and so the selectmen have a process. You have to apply to the building department for reviews under the health code, the plumbing code, the building code and electrical code. And people come out and conduct all these inspections, and there's a ton of records about a lot of upgrades that were done over the years, many years. In 2011, 2012 time, there was extensive Board of Health records concerning a punch list that they required, and it's a long punch list about the work that needed to be done behind the cabanas. So we were standing there yesterday when the folks were delivering all that stuff. Kind of been a point of contention because at some point in the recent past that wasn't owned by the inn and is now owned by the inn. Danielle purchased that property to the rear. But there were a variety of different storage mechanisms, just metal sort of bookcases. I don't know what else to call them. Things were not formalized the way that you see them out there today with those 2 plastic sheds. Those sheds, by the way, came into being in 22, 23. So Danielle's husband died, I believe, in 2021. Correct me if that's the right date. The following year, 2022, before they opened for the 2022 and 2023 seasons, there was a lot of upgrades done. There were inspections again in connection with those licenses. And there was extensive plumbing, electrical, and code upgrades. No structural alterations, just upgrades to make sure that public health safety issues were corrected. And as part of that, those plastic sheds came into being, and you can see it's much neater. Those propane tanks were installed as an upgrade. These aren't new uses. They're just being brought up to code in response to town inspections to make sure that they're compliant before they open. License gets issued every year, and before that, before the season starts and the license is issued at a public hearing, there are lots of inspections that go on. So to the extent some of these issues that they've raised speak to changes that have been made over the years, none of it was done, I can't stress this enough, in the dead of night. Everything was done sort of in open daylight, certainly. Nothing was intentionally overlooked in terms of being within your jurisdiction. There's a lot of communication you can see with the town and my clients to ensure that these changes and this operation was operating in compliance with all the various codes that exist. So I can confirm, again, with the exception of that deck, the 2 plastic sheds, and the conversion of that cabana, the footprint did not change, just its roofing, siding, and windows and doors changed. There have been no structural modifications since my clients have owned it in 1986 to the present. So all that activity has gone on within that fenced area. That fence, I think everybody is now in agreement, has not changed. It has not, that footprint has not gone further seaward into that dune. And so, and most important, all of the surrounding coastal dune and vegetation has been permitted to remain in its natural form. There hasn't been any sort of cutting, planting, that's all been left untouched. And I think the iterations of the aerial photographs demonstrate that obviously there's some erosion and accretion that occurs with the coastal beach out in front of the dune. And sometimes the dune is closer with some bared beach, and sometimes it's further out. When you compare the 1920 photograph and the 2023 photographs, over 100 years we have of aerial photographs, you see a much healthier dune system. And that vegetation around that bare area where the restaurant used to sit on the ground has grown in, and that bare area that's visible in the photographs from the 30s and 40s has actually shrunk a lot to what you see today. I think I don't know how if you want to go through.
I think it's good. I think you've talked about the
Table
issues. I think you've talked about the issues that are germane to the
Okay.
regulations at this point. Is anybody else on behalf of the Summer House looking to make a comment?
And I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Yeah,
I can go into more detail.
we appreciate it. And before we go to others, do members of the commission have any questions or comments about what Sarah said? I do have one question. It's been noted over time that the bar, the location or maybe the orientation of the bar was edited and changed. And, you know, the way you're using structure in your testimony is like from what the building code says, but the way that we use structure is a lot different within the wetlands protection regulations, and a bar would count as a structure under our process. So can you talk about any potential changes to the bar?
You're right. I forgot that. So yes, that did change in 2022, along with a lot of the electrical upgrades, plumbing upgrades. That bar used to angle. So there was a straight part and then it angled towards that last cabana. It was straightened. The linear footage, it had to, for their license purposes, to ensure that no additional seating was created. It's the same linear feet, and that was inspected prior to the opening of the 2022 season by the building inspector to confirm that, and it was licensed. But you are correct, that bar was altered in 2022. And it is on the dry laid patio. It's not touching any part of the landform. Again, I don't think it impacts the ability of the coastal dune to provide its functions of storm damage prevention, flood control, wildlife habitat. It's all on the dry laid patio and the wood floor that sits behind the bar.
Thank you. And some of these questions are, you know, whether there are impacts to performance standards or not. Anything that's within our jurisdictional area needs to come in for a permit. So we need to make sure that every change has been documented, is noted so that it could be permitted. Will, are you able to put up the plan that Art created, or Art, are you able to show it? Or?
We have any vision.
It's in the letter from there.
If you give me just a few minutes, I can get it up, I believe. If you want to keep.
Questions or, yes. Yes, please distribute them if you're willing. Or let commissioners see them.
You can get it in my email. It's
it is in the packet in the letter that was submitted. But I want to make sure that people who are watching in the public can see this as well. So thank you. And while we try to do that, any other comments on behalf of the Summer House, or should we hear from the other side on this. Okay. Okay. All right, so Mr. Wood or Mr. Madden, do you wish to comment? And if so, could you please identify yourself and who you may be representing? Yes, Brian, go ahead.
Thank you. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. I think before I get into a couple comments, I think Tom Laughlin had wanted to say a few comments.
Are you Tom?
Yes,
Come up here and please introduce yourself and go for it.
Well, good evening, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk with you this evening. I'm Tom Laughlin. I'm at 8 Cottage Avenue in Sconset. I'm one of the leaders of the South Side Sconset Neighborhood Association, which represents 24 households in Sconset that are located in close proximity to the Summer House. Our association, we're registered as a Massachusetts LLC. I'm joined by Glenn Wood this evening and Paul Santos and Brian Madden, who we've engaged. And the reason we got together as an association, we really formed and coalesced last summer in response to the neighborhood's increasing concerns over the years, really relating to what we viewed to be deteriorating conditions and operations of the Summer House. Our view that the Summer House is presenting health and safety hazards to the neighborhood, as well as some chronic nuisance issues. And some of these have been reported upon in the press, and you probably have read about them, so I won't, recount them here in the interest of time. When we formed our association, we engaged attorneys, surveyors, environmental consultants, whose work identified numerous matters at the Summer House relating to what we believe to be a long-term pattern of disregard for and non-compliance with established town laws and regulations, as it's steadily grown its footprint and its operations over the years. And some of these are under the purview of your commission. Attorney Toronto Florence mentioned the letter that Stephen Cohen had written to the town back in January that lays these out. Our association doesn't seek to shut down the Summer House per se, but we do believe they should be held to the same standards that we and any other Nantucket are held to by the various town authorities. Just last summer, there was a big issue with 2 Gully Road about the clear cutting that's right next door to the Summer House. And they certainly were held to the commission standards. I'll just stop there with that. There's a little bit of background of who we are and why we sent the letter. And I'll let Brian pick up from here.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time this evening.
Yes, thank you for being here. Mr. Madden, go ahead.
Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC. So we had started off doing a desktop analysis for the neighborhood association. And we started looking at Conservation Commission files on record, some of which we were familiar with, having worked on properties directly to the north and south. Actually, I had flagged a coastal dune as part of 10 Ocean Ave. That RDA was filed in December. I believe the determination of applicability was issued just after the new year in January 2017. That included the delineation of the coastal dune, and then further to the south, and more recently with the land bank's application for the stairs that were rebuilt at the top of the slope. The coastal dune within the Magnolia Ave right-of-way was demarcated and shown. But there's nothing on record for 16 Ocean Ave. No Conservation Commission's filings, to our knowledge, have ever been submitted. So there's no plans of record, no delineation or affirmation of the resource areas and effectively the commission's jurisdiction. So with the coastal dune, that is a unknown moving target exactly and where the boundary is. Certainly it could have run through or still runs through the patio area. That is unknown. I think we can make some reasonable presumptions based on connecting the dots. We're certainly not asking the owner to rip up the patio and try to confirm that dune boundary. I think we can come to a reasonable conclusion on a best fit line for that to affirm the boundaries and really set forth the commission's jurisdiction. Because ultimately, we just want to memorialize exactly activities out there and moving forward. Encouraged to see that the deck portion that was expanded, that's going to be removed. We would request that a notice of intent be filed to have that plan on record, be recorded, to set forth all the parameters, include some restoration of the dune area, and then bring the site into full compliance. What hasn't really been discussed yet is within the open sandy area to the east of the patio. We had more recently submitted some updated photographs and some aerial images. If you go back to like the 08, 09 Mass GIS aerials, it shows a pretty well vegetated dune area with limited paths, no large open sandy areas. That is different under existing conditions. And last year, when we conducted our site evaluation from surrounding properties, we did submit photographs of tables and chairs set in the dune and dining service of some sort being conducted out there within the dune itself. Based off of yesterday's on-site, appreciate the opportunity to walk the site and see the existing conditions. One thing that I wanted to point out was the utility vault that's labeled on the site plan. That's the sewage ejector pump, I believe, area. I believe that was recently replaced or rehabbed. There had been previously something there, but it certainly looks like it has been newly reset within the last year or few. Unclear, but that immediately abuts the coastal dune, and should have required a filing for that activity. I think that basically summarizes. I mean, we had submitted the summary report and some additional responses in relation to the memo from Nutter. But again, specifically just looking for the commission to request a notice of intent to bring everything into compliance and have a plan of record and set the jurisdictional standards moving forward here. So appreciate the time.
Thank you. Mr. Wood, would you like to speak?
Mr. Chair, I'm all set. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I think based on the testimony and everything that was received to us today, and also the field viewing that we did yesterday, can you leave that up? Sorry. It's clear that some activities on site have been done without the benefit of a permit, an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. I think some of these aren't really disputed. So the deck extension, the bar reorientation, and some of them there's a little bit of disputes, but it seems to me that the propane tanks and the plastic sheds were added within the past few years without a permit. And at some point, the table service within the open sand area in the dune was added without the benefit of a permit. So it appears clear that activities on site have been done without the proper permitting. And I think that in order to get everything appropriately permitted on site, we should require notice of intent here. But how do other commissioners feel? Yes, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's completely reasonable, from what the abutters, or I shouldn't use the word abutters, but what the parties are asking for. Also note there, when we were on site, there was some material that I don't know if it's directly related to the summer house, but there were some tent poles and things that were kind of laying in the dune area, and maybe some past compost I noticed. So all those things considered, I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask for a notice to get into compliance.
Other commissioners? Okay. I'll note too that the propane or the plastic sheds in the area adjacent to the propane tanks, one of them is within the 50-foot buffer, which we generally don't permit structure within the 50-foot buffer. So it really makes sense at this point to have a notice of intent to clean up all of these issues, get a plan of record, get an accurate resource delineation, and have the applicant seek approval for the things they want to retain or relocation of other elements. How does that sound to everybody? Good? All right, so yes, go ahead.
So we'd be filing.
Yeah, you gotta use the microphone.
We'd be filing the notice of intent application showing everything that's on the existing conditions plan and getting approval for all of that. Is that the, so the scope of the notice of intent, is it just the issues that are in dispute? Is it everything? Looking for clarification.
So your job is to do some research. Anything that was constructed prior to the enactment of the Wetland Protection Act, and that would have a pre-existing use, doesn't need to be permitted because it meets the conditions for pre-existing use. But even by your own admission, some of these things were done within the last 5 years. So certainly anything that has been done recently needs to be applied for. But really anything that's been done since 1972 needs to be applied for because there's never been permitted through the Conservation Commission.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yep, thank you as well. So what we're going to do is there is an active enforcement order in process. We're going to amend that enforcement order to require the applicant to issue a notice of intent to try to bring the site into compliance. Staff, is that amenable to you?
Right. It's being written in my notes as we speak.
Okay, is there a motion to amend the enforcement order to require the applicant to bring a notice of intent before us to bring the site into compliance?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. And Commissioner Williams is recused. No, we need to talk about that next. So normally when we do these things, we do assign some dates associated with it. I forgot that bit. But Will, do you have any recommendations on that?
For that time, bring them on.
Is it allowable to figure that out on a staff level, or do we have to figure that out right now?
Normally what we do is we assign a date. Hey, can you not be involved if you're not on the hearing? Well, you can't be having sidebar conversations with that at a hearing, whether you're involved or not. So normally what we do is we do choose a date, but then we understand that sometimes you can't meet that date. So what we do is pick a date And if that date needs to be extended, the applicant must submit a letter to the Conservation Commission indicating why it needs to be extended. So we could pick like 30 days, 60 days, whatever makes sense with the opportunity to have a letter to extend it. I think 60 days is reasonable in this.
I was gonna say September 15th.
Let's just say a number of days rather than the date. It makes a lot more sense. Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion to have the notice of intent submitted to us within the next 60 days? Or if that timeline can't be met, then the application, yeah, go ahead.
Just to jump in, and I've ran into this before, that's the 60-day clock will actually start when the EO is amended. I will put a date, like I will give you a date on the amended EO, certainly. I just had to remember that.
The Will gets to do the math, so you don't have to. All right, so would somebody like to make the motion to have the enforcement order be amended to have the NOI submitted within 60 days of the amendment to the EO? Or if that date can't be met, then the applicant can submit a letter explaining why.
So
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed, no abstain. Commissioner Williams is recused. So we will look for that notice of intent to be submitted within that time period. Thank you all. And that means Linda can come back to the table.
Can this meeting get any longer?
It could.
What is it now?
It's almost
Oh,
nine.
almost 9. Okay.
Because of the decision by Commissioner Beal to resign, we need to appoint somebody to the CPC. Would anyone like to be our CPC
I
representative?
spoke to John and he is very interested in doing it. His
Okay.
wife's 60th birthday in Boston today.
All right. Is anyone else interested? Okay, let's hold this appointment over until the next meeting and hopefully John will volunteer at that point.
Okay.
Reports, crack. CPC, there's nothing. NPNEDC,
Nothing. We have not met yet. First meeting on Monday.
okay, Harbor Plan.
Working through it. We're
Right.
closing in and we need you back just even as an ex officio, please.
I'll be at the public meeting for
Fine.
sure.
Because we got a public meeting coming up in August again to present like a very rough draft. And we're working through this very last section and you need to be at these meetings. But it's moving along and we hope to get this sort of finalized within the next 3 or 4 months, finally. But I think there's another thing that has come up because some of the stuff that came off the windmill came through the cut and has a potential of coming into Nantucket Harbor, which we do have jurisdiction over. And this is not something that we had even anticipated at that point. So we're going to have to bring that up when we meet in 10 days again as to how we want to address that kind of thing. Because we could have put a boom, we could have done anything to keep it from coming around into the eel beds and the scallop beds and the anchorage.
Thank you. Offshore Wind Work Group, we decline to make a representative to that group unless they need us to. So that will bring us to commissioners' comments. Any comments?
Excellent meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It was a tough one.
It was, but we
Technically
got through
and
it. We
procedurally.
got through it. It was handled perfectly. There was no Sturm and Drang. It was great.
I have 2 personal comments. The first is that, this meeting went on long and rightfully so. But I know at one point before the commissioner changeover, we'd had a discussion of updating our internal policies and procedures. And we should reschedule that discussion because there are certainly some things we could do to make the meetings not last as long.
Jeff's gonna give us a list, by the way, of everything.
Great.
No, and you.
I'll let you go in 1 second, and then the other thing, and maybe I'm stealing Will's thunder here, is unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to have a replacement for Mark until October. So we're going to be dealing with low commissioner turnout until then. So if you need to miss or you need to recuse, please let us know in advance so that we can let representatives know, because if we have less than 4 people. They can't open the hearing. And we want to be respectful of them and let them know. So please let us know, or honestly, let the staff know if you have any recusal concerns or any meetings that you're going to miss.
I think we can do it with 4, because the 4 is a quorum.
We could do it with 4, but if there's going to be less than 4.
Oh, yeah, then we got an issue.
So I mean, right now we have 5. So if one person's not going to be there and someone has to recuse, that's a problem. So yeah,
And
just
as
let
long as
us.
We can keep zooming in. I mean, I've zoomed in twice from the Kohl's parking lot in New Jersey, Paramus.
Yeah.
My son and my brother cut a swath through Kohl's.
Yeah,
while I'm
just
in the
let it,
car.
just let us know. All right, Will, administrator staff report.
I had a relevant comment. Person who said
Policies and procedures.
Yeah, I know this is nobody's gonna want to hear this, but I almost think that may be a good special extra standalone meeting for us.
Yes.
Short
I
meeting
think
or a
it doesn't
short
have to be-
meeting.
It doesn't have to be long, but I think that if we can all get in a room and actually discuss the procedure stuff, I think that the long-term benefit for our meeting length is worth a full meeting about it. But I don't think it's gonna have to be very long. I just think we should all get together and talk about it. And everybody's got.
Yep.
In mind.
Yeah.
Send us any of the possible dates so that we can start getting something on the calendar.
And hopefully not in August.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr.
Is there
Chairman.
a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That is unanimous, and hopefully everybody has a good rest of their night.
I'm telling you, nice job. I'm telling you, nice job.
Let's stop.
Well, there you go. Learn something new every day.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, well, I learned from the last.
Really, Seth, you run an unbelievably good meeting.
Thank you.
Your procedures and your clean and concise